What a show we got tonight. Very excited. Very excited. Look at all these people that are here. Guys, I appreciate it. We're a couple minutes after 7 o'clock here in New York. Just want to say thanks and shout out to so many people. I see Domino Zero, 30 FPS hype. He says, shout out to Domino, one of the Mooch Maniac family members. And also shout out to Straight Shot, who I'm going to give a shout out to in a second again, but he's our newest Mooch Maniac. I appreciate that, guys. If you'll hit that like button as you're all kind of just getting into the room, getting ready. Maybe you're putting your Switch down, saying, you know, Mooch is on. I got to listen to this show. But you can do both at once. You can do both at the exact same time. You can still enjoy this show and still get a little Zelda time in. So there's a lot you can do while you're enjoying this great show. Please tweet it out. The links are in the chat. The links are right below there. If you'll hit the like button, possibly you'll think about hitting the subscribe button. I can't believe how, in my world, the channel has grown. And, you know, it's funny because I wanted to take a minute as I kind of let some of the other panel members kind of shuffle in. I wanted to say a shout out to a bunch of people out there. You know, we've been doing YouTube for a long time here. And that's why I can't say that I say thank you enough to all you guys that make the channel that great. The great Jimmy Harris says, the super chat's working. It's a miracle. What is up, my brothers? Let's get it. Jimmy, thanks for being here. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there that come on the show. And, you know, they're working really hard behind the scenes. I've actually been talking to a few people recently. You guys know I've had the great Button Basher on the show at least twice now. He's got an outstanding channel over there. You guys got to go over and check out Button Basher Gaming podcast. It's him and his buddy Vance, his podcast partner. These guys did a great show where they interviewed David Jaffe. And, you know, it was just a great show put together. And these are guys that are coming up and saying, you know what, I want to get into this YouTube space. And it's a tough thing sometimes. It's not the easiest thing to do. So I want to say shout out to Button Basher out there doing his thing, getting amazing guests, showing tremendous support to people in the community. Just means the world to me. And I love bringing new folks onto the show. So if there's anybody that's ever saying, you know, geez, Mooch, I'm going to be doing YouTube in the future, you know, hit me up on Twitter. It's the same thing. It's Mooch TV. Drop the O's for zeros. Love to have you guys on the show and give new voices a chance on the air. You know, people gave me a chance on the air. I'd like to give others a chance on the air. Shout out to the great Zuby Tech who's here. So I want to say thanks to everybody. Again, we're going to have a great show tonight. We've got more panel members joining us as the hours creep on. But before we do that, again, right below, if you look at that amazing description, will you look at that? Will you look at that? I think tonight's is an A+. I'm not any kind of English teacher, but just go ahead and read that. It's fantastic. Right above that description is the join button. And if you will, just welcoming these great Mooch Maniac family members one by one. The great Sir X-Man, JudaZuk, WoolleyGamer, MumbleRanting Gaming, Tyson Web 509, True Witty, Big Chuck 777, Alfonso Carter, Brap, who can't make it tonight. Shout out to Brap if he's listening on the road. He's doing a great family event with his kids, and they got a whole thing going on in the school. So shout out to them. Shout out to Brap. I hope you're having a great time with the family. Jamie, Damien, the great Jimmy Harrison who's here, Andy Hart, Red Hood 420, Ham Solo 05, Rob Jones, Dad of War, Night Ripper 7, Toto Dope, Thumbs, JC 2013, Ice Queen Gaming, shout out to Dawn, RP Gaming, Passive Profit, Dex Flex 27, Lord Metroid who's here in the house tonight. Shout out to Lord Metroid. Rabbit Got the Gun. Our newest members here, Fastbender, Archwar Angel. Again, Straight Shot. Thank you so much for hitting that button before we went live. I want to give you the recognition that's due. Thank you, Straight Shot. Appreciate having you here. Our major Mooch Maniac. Shout out to Gavin House, Slang Chilean, Julian Johnson, your boy Roy who's here, Scolari Brothers, Smokes 901, DC Gaming, Miko, Gaming with Persona, and Jay Bari, who both have What's Up PlayStation tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That's how I start my Saturdays. I recommend you do the same. Supreme Samurai, Tactical Gamer, Danelle Brown, That Guy Smitty, 4-Star General, Brian B, a.k.a. Delirium Blades. And shout out to Delirium Blades. We're going to get into it tonight, but I know that he's got the Ally, the ASUS Ally pre-ordered. So shout out to Blades. Can't wait to talk to him offline a little bit about that. And our VIP Mooch Maniacs, pardon me. Raji, Button Basher Podcast, Snoop Will Poxskate on, who's here in the chat. Domino Zero, Shadow Assassin, Strictly Gaming is back on Twitter, and I can't wait till he gets back on YouTube. The Wise Old Gamer and our honorable mentions are out there without food, water, or toilet. Come back home. The great Marty and Ambassador Bison. Going a little fast for even myself. Isaac Gentry, Get This Work. Where is Get This Work? Shout out to Get This Work and our forever Mooch Maniacs, Longshot 316, and the great Optimus code. Guys, that being said, again, I'll just repeat myself. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you would, consider joining the channel. Really, really helps. I can't say that enough. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this outstanding panel that we have. And I got news for you. This is your Zelda Tears of the Kingdom headquarters for the weekend. Period. Yeah, I feel comfortable saying that. I said it. I just did. Well, let me say this much. I'm going to welcome the great Slow-Mo Backslap, which let me tell you something. He's the only person on the panel I'm not aware of whether or not he's getting into the Zelda vibe. But I got news for you. The other 11 topics, yes, we're going to hit some of them, are really up Slow-Mo's alley. So, Slow-Mo, welcome to the show, buddy. It's been too long. How you been?
What's up, man? What's up, Mooch? What's up, chat? Am I into the Zelda vibe? Nope.
I figured.
I don't care about Zelda. I have not cared about Zelda since I was I think my age was in the single digits, and there was a big, long pause cartridge that was gold looking, or everybody thought it was gold back in the day.
Yes.
In the NES days. Like I remember playing that Zelda, and I didn't like it, and I haven't played Zelda since.
Well, listen, maybe, just maybe, Slow-Mo. We try to make a difference on the channel, okay? We try to make a difference.
What do you say?
There might be a way that we can convince you after this show that you get into Zelda.
I'm good.
All right. Well, listen, I got news for you.
I'm hating on the game. It ain't for me.
That's fine. That is completely fine. I just want to let you know we've got two pros here, and you're gonna have to sit back, enjoy that coffee. You're gonna enjoy every minute of this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm here. I'm here to listen and
someone knows me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I know. Chris about to be telling me all about what Zelda has
changed
done
my life.
Exactly, man.
The second coming, a cure AIDS, all of that.
Man, completely reversed his credit. I mean, I'm like, God dang, all right, but I'm here to listen. That's all.
I appreciate that, Slow-Mo.
For that topic.
Well, let me say this much: the great Chris Righteous is here. Chris, listen, you know this as well as I know this. This is the intro I give you, and you deserve it. I just don't talk about games of this magnitude, especially when it comes to these amazing JPRGs or anything nostalgia like the great Zelda franchise that has just been, listen, even people who say they don't like it still have respect for it. So, Chris, I am uber excited to have you on the show tonight. Chris, how you doing this evening?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on again. I'm very excited tonight to talk about, Zelda and, of course, other topics as well, too. Not just that. And yeah, shout out to the panel members that are going to be joining us, and everybody in the chat. Shout out to all my peoples in the chat. And yeah, I mean, it's a big event. It's a big gaming event. It's a historical event. Every time a new Zelda releases, the whole industry, stops for it and stuff like that. And it feels that way, and it feels like very big. Going from like the midnight launch and stuff like that. But I'll get into that later. But yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Chris, great to have you, buddy. Really, really great to have you. And also, speaking of one of the gurus himself in the world of Zelda and Hyrule, you guys don't need even an introduction. The man is known throughout the YouTube streets. The great Dreamcast guy is back on CrossFire. DC, outstanding. Not only, it's always outstanding to have you on the show, but when a game of this magnitude comes out and to have you on the show, I get the double dip. So, DC, how you doing tonight?
Zelda very much surpassed my. Put out a video called "I Was Wrong About Tears of the Kingdom." I'll be honest; those trailers did not super wow me. It just looked great, but not possibly amazing. And I played it. And you know what? I'll take the fattest L. This game is freaking amazing.
Oh, DC, you've already got me excited. I'm going to go ahead and tell the audience what I told you in a second. I want to say real quick, shout out to the great Domino Zero. He says, Christmas Mooch, fly, Eagles, fly. Yes, I believe we are playing on Christmas. Shout out to Domino. Danelle Brown, he says, it is funny you still pronounce my name wrong. It is Don Nell, like Donnell Jones. But have a good show. Danelle, am I saying it wrong? I don't even know that I'm doing it wrong. This must be a New York thing, and this is why he can't stand New Yorkers. He can't stand New Yorkers. Shout out to Danelle Brown.
Say his name again. Say his name again.
Donnell.
Yeah, you're saying it wrong. It's just Donnell.
Donnell.
There you go.
Donnell. Am I saying it right now?
Just let it flow off. Donnell.
All right,
there you go. Here we go.
Do me a favor, Slow-Mo. You keep on top of me tonight. Anytime that's said wrong, You let me know, please. Donnell Brown, we are going to make sure that we say it correct every single time here on out. The great Hustle and Motivate here. He says, it's great. Hashtag creatine boys are in the building. Shout out to Hustle. Great to have you here. Hustle, love what you're doing, by the way, man. Love the health kick you're on. You've motivated me through your tweets, so keep that up. The great Ramon Terrell's here. He says, truly an awesome host. Love your show, Mooch. Let's go. Ramon, thank you so much. And RP Gaming, outstanding of RP back here with us. He's always been a Mooch Maniac family member. Just looking to see what it says here. I apologize. Upgraded to Major Mooch Maniac. RP, thank you so much. Shout out also to King Thresh Game. I see the King is here as well. King, outstanding content. I know that you were out in PR and you still provided us content while you were out there. I don't know how you do it. I can't even get that much content out, and I'm in my own home. So shout out to Thresh. I appreciate him being here also in the chat. That being said, let me start with DC. DC, listen, let's talk Zelda, right? We're going to start the show off with Zelda. Big shocker. But DC, you even said it yourself. You had to take the L on it. What was it that you were thinking prior to playing the game and how your opinion shifted as you went through it?
I assumed that it was going to be Breath of the Wild 2. I thought it was going to be Breath of the Wild with dungeons and spice and abilities, but it feels more than that. Like, this is definitely Breath of the Wild 2 in that we are in Hyrule, we horses and stuff from your first save file carryover and stuff, but it also somehow feels totally different. The flying kingdoms, the exploration, the new story, it feels almost kind of next gen to me. It actually, in a weird way, makes me super excited for all these rumors of Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever the hell it's going to be called. Because I'm like, all right, if they're doing this with the current Switch, what the hell could possibly be coming next? I feel like that's what Nintendo does that I always have to give them credit for, is they make you excited for the game they haven't made yet while you're playing the game that's already blowing. It's really top notch.
So, DC, just so you know, I appreciate you getting into that initial part of it. A lot of the people in the chat are saying they can't hear you too well. I just cranked you up really loud on Discord. Is there anything on your end that maybe you can magnify yourself?
Yes, I can. Okay, I'm doing it right now. Sorry, I turned myself down some. Bam, how about that? Boom. Hi, am I louder?
Yeah, guys, DC just changed his audio. Please let me know in the chat if DC, continue on with what you were saying now.
Yeah.
Kind of take us through the game a bit and how you kind of came up with your review score.
Yeah. So in my review, I gave it a 10 out of 10. And I do think a lot of that came down to just the raw gameplay of it. I very much enjoyed the amount of crafting. I mean, every part of this game, from the way you gather items to the way you're merging stuff together with Ultra Hand. At one point while I was reviewing the game last Sunday, I've had the game for almost 2 weeks now. I had a friend come over and she really likes Zelda, and I just built a car. Like, literally was walking down the road and I just found some tires and wheels and I just built a car and started cobbling together engines and flamethrowers. And I'm just driving down the street and crashed into a bunch of bogoblins. And she's just like, how is this even possible? And I'm like, that's what's crazy, is that what I did there is super normal in this game. Everybody can do crazy, weird shit instantly. And I love that.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and just go right through here. So, Chris, you're here in DC. Now, DC, for those that don't know, what was your review score? Like I said, I'm kind of sitting here, and I purposefully didn't watch that because I wanted to hear it right. I got a chance to talk to you tonight. What did you give Tears of the Kingdom?
I gave it a 10 out of 10. I just feel like the whole thing is, sometimes people say, does a 10 mean it's a perfect game? In my opinion, no. I think a 10 means that it blew away every single measurement it set for itself. This is a bigger, better Zelda by every measurable capacity. I mean, it's just great. I cannot believe this thing runs on the Switch, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of people, there's two things. A lot of people are saying, I can't believe it runs on the Switch. Other people are saying, somebody get me a Switch too, quick. That being said, Chris, what do you think when you hear DC, and where did you come into this? Because you know what, we are going to come back and we're not going to, by no means, pick on DC's rank or review score, but a lot of people have a lot of questions about how Zelda keeps getting these 9.5s and 10s, and it does have some flaws through it. But how that a lot of reviewers don't really emphasize that on this game. And DC, that is not at you. That's pretty much everybody that picked up this game. And Chris, where are you on this as far as how you're enjoying the game and what you're hearing from not just the gaming community, but even the media and how they're kind of transpiring their review scores as the days have gone on.
Well, I knew it was going to be highly reviewed because this franchise has been very consistent. I know everybody likes to, throw the it's review high because it's Nintendo, so they get the extra points, or and things or it's nostalgia, or whatever. You can't just you can't just go off of that, man. You like that's a rinse and repeat argument. That's just a pure feelings based argument, right? Because like in Breath of the Wild, that was the case. Actually, I know people who didn't like Breath of the Wild because it wasn't traditional. You know what I mean? I know. It sold 30 million versus in the last traditional one sold 3.6 million, right? So it was way more new people that got into it, and there's people that didn't like it because it's not traditional. So to me, that's actually proof that nostalgia actually worked against that game in particular and stuff like that. But now, I mean, here in DC, that's the sentiments around everybody that I know that was already playing the game for over a week now because it got leaked, and I know people with hack switches and PC and stuff like that. So I knew the game was going to be highly rated because there's no way that they come out with one of the greatest open world games of all time, right? And it's rated a 97, it sells 30 million and stuff like that. And then their sequel, their direct follow-up takes longer to make than the original game, which the original game was really just building the engine, the physics and the interactable world and all this other stuff and whatnot. So I knew it's like there's no way in hell they're just gonna sit on their hands and not make sure, especially if they're gonna charge $70 for it. They made sure these motherfuckers hitting a 96, right? A 95, 96, 90, 97 on Metacritic and winning game of the year and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I mean, it really doesn't surprise me. I know a lot of people. You don't have to be into the game and whatnot, but people truly love this game. People like when people actually, like say, yo, this shit is absolutely amazing. It's a 9, it's a 10 out of 10 and stuff like that. Most of it is actually coming from genuine places. Most of it is coming from people who are having firsthand experience. And a lot of people who think that there's cap or whatever, they're not playing the game themselves, right? And it's fine. You don't have to. You're not into it. If you have different standards of what you think, this game and that game is worth should be $70. It's whatnot. But as far as like what I've been playing so far, I've gotten through the entire Great Sky Island, which is the tutorial of the game, right?
Yes.
And Nintendo has already released that information. And whatnot. And yeah, I agree with DC, right? Even though they do reuse a lot of the assets, they do, it is the same world or whatever. It just feels a lot different. It just feels like they made a bunch of changes to make it stand out and feel different than Breath of the Wild, even though it's pretty much off the same foundations, right? And, you got some of the same animation. Link still got the same 4-hit combo, and I was, and leading up to that, that was slightly my concern. It's like, okay, so I know that they're gonna do a lot with it, but are they gonna do enough to where it feels like, okay, I'm getting that same feeling of like the first time of playing Breath of the Wild again? And so far, yes. So far, yes, I am getting that feeling from all the new additions, from like the sky, the new movements in the air, the new Zonai technology. And Zonai was something that was briefly, like, it was like spoke about like one time in the original game, and we didn't, so this whole lead up was all about fan theorizing what the hell the Zonai was. Now they're complete front and center. The story is a lot more involved now. Like I was actually pretty surprised with how cinematic it's been so far with the storytelling, because in the beginning of the game, it starts off a lot more linear than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, you just wake up, you grab the tablet, you walk out the cave, and that's it. You know what I mean? And then you're doing the Great Plateau and getting your glider, and you're on your way and stuff like that. This one actually, you start off with Link and Zelda, and and there's been in the trailers and stuff like that. There's Ganondorf and whatnot, and then and the story keeps progressing in certain ways that it's surprising me so far. So
well, Chris,
yeah,
let me ask you this, Chris, because you've said something. DC kind of alluded to it, and I saw a lot of people on Twitter going off about this. This is something that kind of gets me. A lot of people say, "Well, I'm not gonna pick up Tears of the Kingdom. It's basically just more Breath of the Wild." But I mean, if you're talking about like Gears 1 and the Gears of War 2, or you're talking about maybe even Uncharted 2 going into Uncharted 3, I mean, a lot of that was similar as well, right? But we all enjoyed those games. I don't I don't find
Yes.
that to be a negative. I don't understand why a lot of
It's
people are
not,
saying that.
it's not a negative. It really, that whole started because the whole DLC conversation started with what was the first game that got hit was like, oh, this is DLC.
It
Was
Miles
it for
Morales.
was it for
God of War
Oh yeah,
Ragnarok, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it
and
was
Forbidden
Miles.
West. They even said that about Forbidden West. I remember, right? I remember them saying about the same thing about Forbidden West. So now I guess there's a resentment that, like, especially with the fanboys, right? That now, like, any other sequel that's not like a big generational leap where like everything is completely built from the ground up and the animations are completely built from the ground up or whatever.
Right.
They just now call it a DLC and just say, oh, it's just more of the same. It's just, this could have been a $30 DLC or whatnot. But for this game, no, because the game, from what I'm hearing, right, I can't confirm this because I haven't gotten far into the game, right? But they said the game is absolutely huge. Like, it's actually like at least 3 times bigger than the original game. The original game was already big itself, and so that's more new things to discover. And plus the map itself, because that's what I was worried. I was like, how are they going to change up the map? The map itself has been completely remixed as well too. Like there's you know, there's a lot of the same villages and stuff like that, but you know, some time has passed by, and obviously the event at the beginning of the game, you know, obviously, you know, things falling from the sky and things lifting up or whatever.
Yeah.
I've also changed some of the geography in some of the locations, but it's virtually almost the same, right? But they added a lot more to that, right? And a lot more dynamic, and plus, you know, the fusion and the Ultra Hand. That's a very complex system. That's not as easy to just patch in. No, they had to completely redo a lot of things. That's not
right.
like an easy, like, oh, it's DLC. No, that takes years of work. You feel me?
I do.
And
yeah,
then the
I
game looks slightly better, right? It does look more like Breath of the Wild, but I noticed, because I just got done playing Breath of the Wild earlier this year again for the 3rd time. I beat it. I put another 100 hours into it, right? So it's fresh off my memory. And I was looking at it as like, yeah, it looks sharper and stuff like that. And I'm looking at it as like, there's a weird little inky style to it. I like it, right? There's a weird little inky style. I don't know what it was. And then I just found out that they're using some of the, you know, Splatoon free engine assets and stuff like that. And I kind of see it. I kind of see it myself. But yeah.
No, that's great. You know, welcoming the great Eric Jackson. Eric, I know that, you know, Eric, me and Eric have some of the best conversations behind the scenes. So shout out to EE. Thanks for being here. He's like, Mooch, I'm coming in hot. I said, E, as long as you're here, buddy, it doesn't matter. So E, I'm assuming with the day you've had and the things going on, work, family, you probably also haven't gotten as much time into Zelda as you may have wanted to. Or let me start this way. First of all, welcome to the show. And second of all,
thank you.
E, are you planning to pick up Zelda? Have you picked up Zelda? Will you be playing this game?
Oh yeah, I picked it up. I've gotten so far as heading to the very first shrine.
Okay.
And that was just like as much time as I could get in, like during the day. So I'll definitely be jumping back on tonight and playing through the weekend. So I'm very early on.
Shout out to everybody in the chat too. No, we are not going to be talking about 2 hours of Zelda. No, I promise you guys that. First of all, wouldn't want to do any spoilers on anything like that. First of all, and I've given these guys 12 great topics to go over. So we've got a lot to get into. You know, Eric, I'll start with you on this one because I kind of, like I said, I want to move through a lot of topics, but this is still Zelda related. Okay. Where are we on the 30 frames per second debate? There's a lot of people out there. One of the platform favorites is saying, hey, wait a minute, just a week ago, we were criticizing 30 frames per second, and now we're stomping our feet, clapping, and lighting a match for Zelda, and Zelda's 30 frames. E, when you hear this kind of talk throughout the community, and you even see it in certain articles, this isn't just community banter. This is happening throughout. The media's picked up on it too. E, where are you on the 30 frames debate?
I'll put it like this. I never I wouldn't say I ever slander. I know because this is probably in reference to Redfall, and people feel like, you know, Redfall got all the crap for being 30 frames per second, right? That's what we're talking about?
Yes.
And that's what the community, we're energy keeping and whataboutisming all over the place. That's
correct.
Pretty much what's going on.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I was never really myself personally like all over the whole 30 frames per second in the fact of you can't play something in 30 frames per second. That's not what the conversation is, as far as I can tell. And I'm seeing people kind of making things up and saying, you know, people were talking about being motion sick, and I'm like, I never saw anybody saying that about 30 frames per second or anything like that. And I see people, well, how come we're not keeping the same energy about this being 30 frames per second? And I'm like, here's the difference. If Nintendo went out and when they created the Switch and they said it's the monster that eats monsters,
right?
then we hold them to it. Like, okay, well, if it's the monsters idiot monster, how come the Switch can't do 60 frames per second, right?
Right.
And if we're going to keep it, if we're going to truly keep it a buck, and we're going to, keep the energy, before the generation started, that's all we heard about was the flops and the deltas, and it's not even going to be like fair. That's what we were hearing, right?
Yep.
And all of a sudden, when Microsoft threw in the Series S, the narrative changed. And now people might not remember this, but Phil and even Matt Booty kind of stepped back on the power narrative. It wasn't about the power narrative anymore, because they couldn't push the power narrative because they created something that wasn't about the power. Right.
That's right.
So everybody in the community was all from the 1X through the Series X was, oh my God, it's about to be on. I don't know how Sony, questioning Mark Cerny and the whole nine, right? And then all of a sudden when the S came on, everybody shifted to the S. I'm like, wait a minute, this is the power community. How come the power community switch it over to the S?
That's right.
Right? So I don't think anybody, as far as Zelda being 30 frames per second, I think everybody's in the knowledge of saying the Switch can't do it. So everyone's looking forward to whatever the next Switch is going to be. And when we get to the next Switch, if they're talking more about 60 frames per second, then that's what we hold them to. But the Switch has never been about that. And Zelda and Breath of the Wild was never really about that. That was never the thing. So no, you can't compare what's going on with Redfall to the Legend of Zelda on the Switch.
And I think you put it in really good terms here, especially with the power narrative. The other thing is DC, I'll just ask you this real quick, and then I want to get Slow-Mo's take on this situation. But DC, you definitely see the verbiage going back and forth on Twitter. I mean, the thing that, and Eric, if I'm misrepresenting you here, you just let me know. But what he really is getting into, DC, is that, Xbox had promised a certain power and a certain frame output. And we would expect that, especially when we're talking about their first $70 game in Redfall. Does the Switch, and I'm asking the question, I don't know, I don't want to sit here and say that this is a right or wrong situation, but the Switch came out in 2017, and, this thing is using mobile parts.
Yeah, practically a tablet.
It's a tab. I mean,
it's showing its age, Mooch.
Oh, absolutely.
Not to cut you off, I'll let DC get into it. I'll say, I'm not giving Nintendo a pass, because I've talked to like Slow-Mo and the other guys that said this thing, when I was playing Bayonetta 3, I'm like, yo, this looks horrible. This thing is well past the season. It needs to move. I wish like the Switch had the power of the Series S. Let's keep it real.
I do.
That's not what we're talking about.
I do too, and I don't think with Nintendo's direction, I don't think we're going to see that. I mean, I even think the Switch 2, which will blow the Switch 1 away, is still going to end up being underpowered when we're even talking about maybe the Pro units that start coming out, which we're going to get into a little bit later.
Right. So because it's still going to be a handheld like device that has to run off of a portable battery. There's only so much that can fit in there. Like even when 2017, right? Yeah, the Switch was underpowered and stuff like that. But when you compare it, it's like what were they exactly underpowered to? The consoles that are bigger and more powerful? Yes, it is. But there was no other hybrid device like it or handheld device like it that came out at that time for $300 for that same price. That's more powerful. That's what I mean. So. And then like now I agree with Eric with the whole 30 frames and stuff like that. It's obviously different, right? It's not or you're not keeping the same energy or whatever. We expect from the Series X to be a minimum of 60 FPS because that's what they said. That's what Aaron Greenberg said. That's what Microsoft said, right? So then when a game comes out, especially when it doesn't look like it's really pushing any graphical boundaries and things like that, that's when that stuff comes into question. Zelda, for at least Zelda is actually pushing the Switch to the limits, and it runs fine. For the most part, I know there's a whole 20 FPS. That's mainly doing Ultra Hand and stuff like that, right? But majority of the time, it's actually running at a pretty smooth, consistent lot 30 and stuff like that, right? Even and Mooch, right? And I'm not gonna go too long on this, right? I know other people gotta speak, and we gotta go to other topics. Mooch, what is the website, right, or the channel that this community, right? You always hear this community, right? Mm-hmm. Constantly weaponizes and constantly use it for like comparisons and to be like, oh, this game is running better or that game is running better. It's Digital Foundry, right? You always see the PlayStation fanboys do it. You see the Xbox fanboys do it whenever one game is running better than the other, right? They always like to use Digital Foundry, right? But yesterday there was that whole tirade that people are blowing this game up as if it's like running like how Elden Ring or like how Jedi or Cyberpunk or Pokemon you know, all these recent examples of these games just having consistent drops and consistent things like that, and bugs and stuff like that. This game is really not doing that, right? It's actually very polished, and I'm actually really impressed for it to be 3 times the size, and it's bug free. There's no bugs, there's no crashes. It's running on consistent. But this is what Digital Foundry had to say about it, right? Real quick. Then I'll let somebody else go.
Go
They
ahead,
said,
Chris.
Given the power or lack thereof available to Switch developers, I think it's fair to say that Nintendo has delivered an impressively polished, complete game that looks and run better than I ever expected. In fact, aside from the pre-patch performance woes, the experience with the game has been exceptionally positive.
Mhm.
I encounter no bugs or unexpected behavior despite the complexity of its simulation, and everything feels just so meticulously crafted. With the state of big AAA releases these days, playing something this polished and complete right at launch is extremely satisfying. So that's actually for the Switch. That's actually that's impressive than what people are giving credit. I know people like to say, "Oh, it don't matter because it's 30 FPS, 900p, and shit like that." But what else were you expecting? There's no way this game can run at 60. It'll be impossible. You feel me? Like that's not, you know. But even still, from a pure design point, the game is still way more than these other games that are more technically superior. The physics is way more superior that none of the other AAA games have caught up to. The weather dynamics and how the weather affects you as the character and stuff like that, none of these other AAA games have caught up to, right? So a lot of people like to think that the whole and I love graphics and stuff like that, but they like to think that or those things give the illusion like those games are doing more, but this game is actually doing a lot more with like the simulation and stuff like that, which is impressive for it to run at mostly 30 for the most part.
Well, so I want to jump in there real quick to play on both y'all's points.
Go ahead,
both
DC.
Jackson and Chris. I think both y'all very much nailed the point, which is that when you start to play Zelda, even in the tutorial area, you can tell they tried their hardest. Like every fucking puzzle, every little contraption, every enemy, every weird thing you encounter. I mean, some of the puzzles I encountered in this game, especially towards the middle part, with my booty. I mean, I literally would have to stare there sometimes, like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Whereas when you play Redfall, I don't give a crap about Redfall's frame rate. The AI is terrible. The vampires are bouncing off walls. Like
Right.
there's
Exactly, DC.
6 different
Exactly.
gun types and all of them suck. Like there's 4 separate characters that have pretty much identical basic ass skill trees. Like I feel like people are trying to compare 30 FPS because let's face it, that's the only thing these games have in common. Everything else, it's just Zelda. I mean, it's Nintendo showing what actual care and passion look like.
I like what you said
Yeah.
right there, too,
And
DC. And EE, I'll give you the mic right now. I want to agree.
All right.
There was a lot of problems with Redfall. This isn't if Redfall was only if the game ran perfectly and it was an amazing game and it was a ton of fun and there was no glitches and problems and just you guys even saw I had gameplay up last week when I was playing and you'd have NPCs that were just locked frozen, like they were actually getting attacked by a vampire, but they were locked frozen. And after I killed the vampire, the NPC didn't move. So there's a lot of problems with the game. It wasn't just the 30 FPS. I think we're just kind of picking on that one subject with Redfall. But go ahead, E.
Which people said, like the 60 frame per second patch is the least of the problems with this game. That 60 frame per second patch is only going to highlight the issues of that game, right? So I'm going to piggyback on what right. So I'm going to piggyback on what you and DC just said. And here's the thing: if Redfall was up to the standard of Arcane, the 30 frame per second part wouldn't even be like the main issue. You could deal with the 30 frame per second part of it. That's not the issue with the game. You know, you can still enjoy a game, and shout out to people who are playing it and finding that enjoyment. But me as an Arcane fan, knowing the games that they put out, that's not up to their standard. That's my problem with it.
Mhm.
If it was a true Arcane game, I'm playing this game and I'm like, this is like the Arcane intern program game. What is this? There's so many other issues with it, and I don't want to hear about, well, I'm having fun once I get my friends together, like I can go, I don't like to jog, but I can go jog with my friends and have fun because we're having a good conversation and laughing and joking. But that's not what it should be. Like, you should be able to sit down with that game and just enjoy everything that it's doing. And to me, it's just not up to the Arcane standard. And I say that as a mega fan of Arcane.
No, and you've said that time and time again on past games by Arcane. You know, I go one step further. I Twitch streamed it with Red Hood, Button Basher, and I believe we had a few others joining us on the show, and it was absolutely one of the hardest things to actually play through because it wouldn't work at times. We couldn't pick up the mission at times. There was issues with the game. And that's just something that's not excusable at the end of the day. That's kind of like the problem. So, Slow-Mo, this is where I really wanted to get you in here because, as you said, you're not playing Zelda right now, but you've seen all this banter going on Twitter. Do you think that this holds? What's your take on this? Because you never hold back when this comes up.
Well, my take on this is that the only people not keeping the same energy is Microsoft. Because they marketed Redfall at 60 frames per second, and then on Xbox they released a game that didn't have that. They marketed their first reveal trailer had this high quality animated 5-minute long sequence, and not a single aspect, not a single moment in that game shows anything of that same level at all. There you get watercolor painting cutscenes where the camera pans from left to right, up to down, or whatever, to make it seem like this is a real cutscene. That's why I expect to see from like an indie studio with like 6 people working in their basement trying to get their first game out. Not Arcane Austin that's made all kinds of high quality games before already, backed by Cinemax Media and backed by a $1 trillion corporation. Like, come on.
Right.
That's they're not keeping the same energy. I find the whole thing weird. Like, where are these people who are like, oh, you guys are, are not keeping the same energy with Zelda, but you were upset about Redfall. Well, everyone knows the Switch can't play that game any better than it's doing right now.
Yeah, no, that's well said.
That's the funny thing. The game works.
Right, but absolutely nobody that's being honest thinks that an Xbox Series X can't play freaking Redfall at 60 frames per second. Like, come on, look at that game. Come on, like it's just it's an unfinished game that they did not give Arcane enough time to finish for I think a multitude of reasons, but I think the main reason is they didn't really they didn't believe in the game. Period. Which I don't understand why they even launched it. If you don't believe in the game, all you're doing is just further hurting your brand, but whatever, So I played the game and I agree with E. It's got way more issues than just 30 frames per second. If it was at 60 frames per second, the gunplay would still be mediocre. If it was at 60 frames per second, you would just be seeing a smoother experience of vampires staring at walls and human enemies watching their buddies get capped in the head and just standing there and staring at you. Like, the AI is broken. The mission structure doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is supposed to be an immersive sim. This is what Harvey Smith, the director, said, that like it still has some immersive sim elements that you would expect from an Arcane game. Okay, so then how come literally every single mission, the way to get past your objective is just to find a key and open the door?
Slow-Mo, we talked about it on this show. We talked about how me and you before the what was it now? Was it the producer or was whoever it was, one of the directors of the game came out and said something along the lines of this game is going to resemble Far Cry. And me and you had said, wait a minute, from what we saw before, we thought it was more of a Borderlands. I could say after playing it, it's neither.
Yeah, it's not. It's like it's trying to emulate a lot of different successful games, but not really achieving that or executing on that at all in anything. Like, not Far Cry, not Borderlands, not any of those other games that have a successful game design that works, and people, when they see those games, they know exactly what to expect. When you Borderlands, you know to expect some crazy guns to do some crazy stuff. You're going to expect these skill trees that are very diverse, where you can actually completely change your character from, say, like Zero, who could be like a melee assassin, to a sniper. Like, the skill trees in this game, large portions of the skill tree are dedicated towards multiplayer. But what if you don't want to play in multiplayer?
Right.
Then okay, well, sorry. You got like
too bad.
2/3 of a skill tree, that you could actually work with, and the rest of it is pointless. It's just this game needed, if any game needed the attention that they gave Starfield. It was that game. Far sooner before they did the, hey, we got one more thing for you.
Well,
Because then they could have actually determined whether this was actually something worth investing in. And if it wasn't worth investing in, cancel the game and let Arcane Austin do something that is more along their alley. Or hey, if they still want to do another passion project, at least maybe it will be a quality one this time.
Yeah, you know, and shout out to Capone. He says, Mooch, this was a one more thing from Phil. So Capone, maybe me and you look at, and maybe you agree with me, Capone. It's just going by that one sentence. I won't judge. Shout out to the great Capone. Great to have him here as well too. But when I see the one more thing, that's usually the thing that gets me the most amped up.
Yeah,
So
the blowout.
right? Yeah, thank you. So like, you know, Apple always does it at the end of their WWDC. Oh, we've got one more thing. Like I remember it was I think it was a year ago they showed the Apple Ultra watch, right? And I listen, that one more thing made me want to trade in the watch that I had for that one. That's supposed to be that big, like you said, DC. It's the fireworks. It's the big deal. So when we saw that was coming, I said, this is a big deal. And it really was a letdown. And I think to answer Slow-Mo, when he says, I don't know why they put it out, I think everybody knows the answer to this. And it's not being sarcastic and it's not being funny. It's they got to get games in Game Pass. The service that everyone says is the best deal in gaming, which I will always say, values in the eye of the beholder. If you feel that way, I say kudos to you. But for others, we're seeing rushed games, incomplete games. Everything goes in there. Look at Halo. Where's the rest of the campaign? You know, and God forbid that thing ever released in 2020. I don't know what we would have all said about it. Reviews or gamers, and combined. So I think when it comes down to it, I want to read a couple of these super chats, and then when I ask one last question, and then we're going to move on to another subject here. True Witty says, I don't understand. And guys, True Witty's, I believe True Witty, you're from another country, so you're English. I sometimes read it wrong, and I don't know if it's also, he said said this is the same game with a different name with the same problems, graphics and frames. If it came to PlayStation, would it get a 90 plus? Now he's talking about Zelda. So let me ask that question to you real quick, DC. And guys, chime in, please. DC, do you think if Zelda wasn't a beloved Nintendo franchise and this game came out on PS5, I guess True Witty's trying to say also in this 30 frame per second situation, would this be a 90 plus rated game anyways?
Well, I guess I always think of things in context. Context matters. I feel like people say that more and more on the internet. This feels to me a lot like the God of War Ragnarok situation, where that was a follow-up. But let's face it, the graphical leap from God of War 2018 to Ragnarok wasn't that big. The frame rate jump was not that big. The combat was not that big, but it was enough of an incremental upgrade on a game that was already a 10 out of 10 that we're happy to give it a 10 out of 10 again. If there was any major PlayStation exclusive that dropped hard locked at 30 FPS with this level of resolution that the Nintendo Switch has, obviously it would be hard lambasted. But I'm just saying that I feel like for a Nintendo Switch game, I don't even mean that as a detriment. I'm just saying the fact that I'm actually playing my file right now. I'm picking flowers and stuff so I can flamethrow some hose later on my Switch while on a podcast. And it feels awesome that I can do that. It looks great on my OLED. That's something my PlayStation 5 can't do. So I'm willing to forgive the fact that Link doesn't have nipples.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. No. I wanna chime on the back because this is what I always hear, right? And you know, it's people can't make an actual argument, so they have to always use hypotheticals, right? And in this specific hypothetical scenario, with this happened and with that happened, nobody can say either or. Like we don't know. Yeah, on the PS5, if it came out at that resolution, that frame rate, yes, because it's the PS5. We've seen way better examples. We haven't seen better examples of Zelda and how that looks and runs, and in a bigger open world, right? A huge open world that looks and runs better than that on the Switch. But we have seen, for Forbidden West and stuff like that, running on a PS5 and stuff like that. Because that's something that I always say is like, only and like I said, when I read from the Digital Foundry, like I said, it's completely polished, bug-free. It's running mostly consistent. Yeah, there's still issues there. There's still frame rate drops to 20 during certain, segments and things like that. But like Elden Ring had way more performance issues, right? And that's a multi-plat, right? And it still got the scores. Games like Skyrim and Fallout and Grand Theft Auto 5. Oh my God, that game ran terrible, especially on the digital PS3.
Yes.
And it's still got a 97. So so we could say there's a Rockstar bias. We could say there's a Bethesda bias, or things like that, right? Luckily for PlayStation, for the most part, they always come out very polished and very, the frame rates are always up to par, even on the PS4. Because it's funny, these people are saying that 30 FPS, you can't score a 30 FPS game high, but a lot of PS4 games were 30 FPS, and God of War Ragnarok is 30 FPS on the PS4. On the PS5, it's higher. So does that mean that the PS4 version should be separately rated because it's 30 FPS? It's always been a ridiculous argument to me.
That's a great point, Chris. Good. I appreciate you bringing that up, too, honestly. Shout out to your boy, Roy. He says, people criticizing Tears of the Kingdom for 30 frames is like criticizing Rocket League for its driving mechanics compared to Forza. Shout out to your boy, Roy. Appreciate that. The great Button Basher Gaming is here. He says, I'm here and I'm late, but the support is real right here. See you all in Hyrule. Basher, thank you so much. Really appreciate everything you do for this channel. And like I say, guys, go over and check out Button Basher Gaming over there. He just did a great interview with the great David Jaffe. You guys got to go check him and Vance out. Shout out to Spider-Man Gamer for subscribing. That means the world to me. Lord Metroid, big time Zelda fan. He's the best Friday gaming show. Tears of the Kingdom, Game of the Year. Like Lord Metroid, that very well could be. Eric, I've got to go with you. One more Zelda question here before we kind of switch subjects. And by the way, guys, if you ever want to come back or something you're feeling, if anybody has something to sound off on Zelda before we do leave this subject, please chime in now. I definitely want to hear everyone's opinion. But Eric, we talk about this on the show for years, okay? The $70 problem. The $70 games, Eric. So I guess my question to you, and I'll play devil's advocate here. Where does Nintendo come off asking for $70 when Breath of the Wild and all these other great Switch games on the same hardware were $60? And we know that Nintendo won't do any. People go, well, just wait for a sale. That's going to be a cold day in hell, folks. So
the sale price is going to be the original retail.
It'll be the original price.
You know what's crazy? There was already a sale, I think, on Amazon for it was like you can get the game at like $60. So it was that or Walmart, and then Nintendo had this digital voucher where you can get 2 games, including Tears of the Kingdom, for $50.
Yes, I did see that. You get 2 games, and it was $99.98 or something like that, to be specific, Chris. I did see that as well. Shout out to Persona for putting that out there. I think it was Persona that tweeted out. Chris, you may have also put that out there. But Eric, where does Nintendo come off with the gall? Where do they come up with this?
Nintendo comes off with the gall because they see their numbers and they see, if you kind of think about it, they probably could have jumped out there like sooner with the $70 game with some of their other titles, right?
Yeah.
It seemed very much to be like a timing thing. Like they saw what, Breath of the Wild did. They know they have one of the most anticipated games in Tears of the Kingdom. So it's like, we're going to go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off now and we're moving forward. And this is a situation of we're going to let the game speak for itself. Because at the end of the day, gamers want good games that they can play. Yeah, we can have the 30 frame per second, 60 frame per second debate, which is a fine debate to have. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we live in an age where that's a reality. And again, yeah, I would like to see that more of that capability from Nintendo, but it's not stopping me from playing the game. At the end of the day, I just want a good game to play.
Absolutely.
And I did enjoy Breath of the Wild, and that seems like Tears of the Kingdom is going to be more the same. So, I know people are out there, with it looks, washed out. It looks like trash, and Nintendo gets the pass. All that is not. That's your reality. That's truth. But how's that stopping anything?
Yeah. Well, True Witty comes back and he says
I
here.
was
Chris.
finding funny, but people would just call me like in the chat. They'll say, "Oh, you're a capper," but they can never actually explain or counter any of my points with actually, with actually good arguments. But no, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean, as far as the $70 and shit like that, listen, you either like it or you don't, right? The same thing with PlayStation 5, right? People were complaining about $70 over there, and I said, yo, you either like it or you don't. And at least with PlayStation, you can wait on the sale, right? And I was telling people, you wait on the sale. You don't want to buy Ratchet & Clank because it's only 10 to 12 hours, for $70. Then that's your prerogative. If you don't want to buy Tears of the Kingdom because it's 900p, 30 FPS, and for $70 games you expect higher resolutions and higher frame rates and stuff like that, that is completely your prerogative. There's truly nothing wrong with that. It's subjective. It's when you start to gaslight the fans and when you start to say all these other things and whatnot. From my perspective, it's always been, well, what is the content of the game is going to offer, right? Because like I said, like I bring up like Ratchet and Clank, it's $70. It was amazing, right? I bought it for $80, platinum and everything. It was amazing. I don't regret it.
Yep.
But then I could turn around and say, well, Elden Ring was $60, and that gave me 100 hours of content. So I expect at least 50 hours of content for myself. That's a ridiculous argument. It's pure. It's actually not a ridiculous argument, right? But I don't make that argument in general, right? Because to me, it is the experience of the game, right? And that was always my other thing. So like what people are essentially saying is a game like Godfall, which I played and I didn't like, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like it.
I didn't like it
It's
either.
4K. It's 4K 60, right? But it was missing co-op features. It was doing, it was missing a lot of things and stuff like that didn't keep the game going, right?
It had 3 maps.
But because it's 4K 60, it's worth more than a game like Tears of the Kingdom that's going to have nothing but high quality content for like hundreds of hours and even years to come, because people were playing Breath of the Wild for years, still discovering and doing new things with the gameplay and stuff like that, right? And then people always say, well, it's because the extra frames and stuff like that. Yeah, that's easier for us to digest. I will buy the PS5 version for $10 extra because it runs and looks better. But that wasn't the main point that Sony said that they increased it. They increased it because of growing resources, growing inflation and stuff like that. They never said it's because of the 60 FPS. Because if that's the case, then PC games should have been $10 more during the PS4 generation when everybody was buying the same games for 30 FPS, but PC could play it at 60 FPS or higher. And if that's the case, that means the PS5 Pro version of games, if it comes out and if it's 120 FPS and 4K and stuff like that, doing more than the PS5 version, then the PS5 Pro version of these games should be $10 extra as well too.
Chris, I love your point, Chris, because realistically, when it comes down to it, when these prices did go up, from $60 to $70, that was the sentiment. That's what these companies had told us. Now, listen, if you're in the audience and you go, Mooch, I don't care. I don't buy any of it. That's fine. But they said it was because of the resources, because of the cost of labor, the cost of this, the cost of that, the technology that goes into it. Everything has gone up. So that really does make, you make a great point as well. We have
this is Nintendo's biggest and most expensive games, and resource costs did go up for them, because remember, they were also talking about raising the Switch prices up, just like PlayStation raised the price of the PS5 and stuff like that. Nintendo was also contemplated as well, but they didn't do it, and they decided just to do it with Tears of the Kingdom, because they know at least this game is going to be worth it. And if they're going to bring out with a $70 Switch game, that motherfucker better be Game of the Year 95 or above, which is exactly what they're doing.
100%. I want to welcome the great gaming Forte. Forte is here. Forte is outstanding when you can join us on a Friday. I know you work a lot of Friday nights, so to have you here is actually extra special tonight, Forte. So how you doing? But Forte, you got to tell us, what was that midnight release like, buddy? I mean, that had to have been something, right?
Oh man. Well, first, shout out to the chat, shout out to the panel with all the amazing stuff that they were spewing. Slumbo ain't had too much to say because we can't stand Zelda. But,
I know that. We know that. Oh, we know.
Yeah.
I digress on that.
I like Zelda.
No,
what's up, bro?
It was. So we did DPS last night, and we stopped right at like 11:15. Had to get back to the store because we reopened at 11:30. It has been some years, and we're talking about even before pre-pandemic. There was probably we ended up with like a good 114 people that picked up last night.
Woo! Let's go. We don't see that. I love it.
When I pulled up to the stove, and there was like people in lawn chairs camped out, like just chilling. Like it was like summer. It's like you could definitely tell that it was like really nice in Michigan yesterday.
Yes.
And they were just out there talking, playing with their switches in line, talking about what they're gonna do first in the game. We had 2 people that actually got dressed up and everything, had their master swords and a Hyrulean shield. I was like, yo, this I said, this is what it's all about. I was tired. I had worked the whole day, did the podcast. I was super excited because I was ready to pick up my copy of the game. But it's like that energy level of that midnight was so incredible. And as we were handing the games out at 12 o'clock, we had a guy at the door that was literally playing the chest opening sound every time somebody walked out the door because they just got another game. It was so cool. So that was really, we was there to I think we didn't leave the store until like a good 2 o'clock and like probably like 1:50 in the morning by the time we got done with cleaning the store and everything after the midnight. But I haven't
Forte,
had an experience like that probably since I want to say 2019, maybe 2018. It was really special. And then
Forte,
today,
how many
go ahead.
copies? How many copies did you get for it? How many were sent to your store despite the
Close
pre-orders?
to 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, close to 300. We went through at least 70% of that between midnight and today at the store. So I think we still had like roughly just under 100 copies left. But it was crazy. When I got to the store today, I actually walked in. I got there probably like 15 minutes before we opened. And there was just another line of people there. And I was like, yo, you always tell people like, hey, if you come to the midnight, it's going to probably be a little bit easier in the morning because 30 to 40% of the people that pre-order will come pick it up at midnight. So when I got to the store today, I was expecting like a lot less people. And it was, but it wasn't nowhere near as less as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was probably going to be like maybe 20 or 30 people outside waiting to get the game. But no, we had a good 70, 80 people out there before we even opened the door.
That's
and
amazing.
It was just this consistent line of people walking in to the point where everybody that walked through the door, it was just like, we were just like, hey, you here to get Zelda? He said, yup. And then he's just rigging them out, getting their Zelda. People like sold out of Pro controllers, sold out of pretty much anything that has Zelda written on it. Walked out the door today. And that's the one thing that I always try to tell people about. Just the one thing I feel Nintendo fans, gamers, that's what they are. They're just gamers. They don't care about, of course there's some crossover because some Nintendo fans have Xbox and some have PlayStation. But I just feel like Nintendo fans in general, all they care about is the games. And that's all it's about. It's like, I don't care about it being 30 frames per second. People was, I was one of those people that said, I can't believe that Redfall's playing at 30 frames per second. But guess what? Nintendo never promised us that. They never promised something like that. So I kind of overlooked those type of things, even knowing I definitely hate playing at 30 frames per second. It's something that I despise. And I always tell people if somebody says something like that, call them out. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm a fraud, but that's because I love Zelda and you will overlook a lot of things for the things you love, just like you will pay any absorbent amount of money for something that you absolutely love.
Well, Forte,
and I think that's the thing
Okay,
about
say that last
Nintendo
part
fans
again.
that people understand the most. What's up?
Say the last part again. You'll overlook.
You overlook a lot of stuff for the things you love.
Right.
A lot of things. Like there is a lot of things that people sit up here and they try to toot that horn and say, oh, I will never compromise for this and I'll never compromise for that. And I'm sitting like the whole world is built on compromises. Everything is built on a compromise. It just depends on how far you're willing to go for that. And for me, Zelda's one of those franchises where I'm like, especially once, Breath of the Wild came out and literally changed my whole perspective of what Zelda could be. I've been saying since the game got announced, I was like, all they had to do was fix 2 or 3 major things. Durability was one of the major things they needed to fix, but guess what? They just made it a little bit more available for you to, deal with it. Is it still there? Absolutely. Did they make the open world feel more lively? That's something that 100% everybody was like, yeah, I need this to be a little bit more fuller. They did that. Hey, what about the stamina bar? Oh, we'll give you an ability that's going to help you with that. So you don't have to worry about the stamina bar as much as you had to worry about it in Breath of the Wild. And the last thing that everybody cared about were dungeons. And I said, if they do all of these things, this game technically could be even better than the first one because everybody keeps saying like, oh, it looks like Breath of the Wild 2. And I'm like, after I saw trailer 3, I was like, this is going to be incredible, bro.
They did all that. They did all of that.
They did everything that people wanted them to do. And guess what happens when you do what people want you to do? They come out in droves and they support your stuff.
So Forte,
what is that, Forte? That's culture.
You said what?
That's culture.
That's culture. But that's what Nintendo has.
That's understanding your fan base.
Exactly.
What drives them, what moves them, and having that tap in. And what you just said a moment ago is true. The thing that you love, you're willing to overlook some things. And I'm gonna keep it a buck for a second. Shout out to, like I say, Xbox dudes, because you guys love Xbox. So you, for the last generation and a half, maybe even longer, you've been putting up with a lot of stuff. And that's why you guys always have this thing about keeping energy with everybody else. But none of that energy keeping has anything to do with what's going on over at Xbox. Yeah. You can have all the nobodies in the world on Twitter agreeing with you and say, yeah, you might be right. That changes nothing about what's going on that platform. But you're there because you still rock with it. So what does Zelda? Why? Look at what, and this is what I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Culture. That's why you see, what Breath of the Wild did for the Switch with a different Nintendo, because Zelda traditionally is not a mega seller for them. That
Right.
changed.
That's right.
That is over now.
Yeah, that's a big misconception too that I hear. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's all I'm gonna say is like, that's the energy you should be keeping is with what's going on in those corporate offices and asking those questions. What Nintendo fans are doing, what Sony fans are doing, you keep saying, well, where's the showcase? That showcase has none of that changes the situation with Xbox right now.
Right. Nintendo ain't had a showcase a full showcase in years.
See,
but the thing is, when they end
But they
up
have the
doing
direct,
one, they
though.
tend to hit
Well,
the
I'm saying,
culture
but
and
that's what I'm
deliver for
saying.
their
Yeah,
fan
they
base.
do the directs and that's the thing. They do the directs and people listen.
I'm sitting here while Forte's telling that story, and I want the audience to actually enjoy this for a second. Let me tell you, it happens. He said the last time he can remember this happening was 2018, 2019. Guys, enjoy these moments. I'm telling you right now,
Yes.
like the days of the midnight release have already been dwindling down. And not that, and like I said, not only do I know Forte, but I know other people that run the GameStops around where I live. And I'll say, hey, this is a pretty big game coming out. Are you going to do a midnight release? They're like, nah, this one's not going to get one. We're not, the company thinks this is not big enough for us to do that. So these monumental showings, and you saw Gene Park, I believe it was Gene Park, shout out to him, took that footage of New York City. I mean, that just went for DC, that went for miles. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to what Forte said. He got over 300 and something copies, okay? I know that our stores around here got over 250 copies. Hear me out for a second. What did that New York store get? Because those were right.
You talking about well over 500-600 copies probably.
Yeah, so because I wanted to touch, because we were talking about that earlier, Mooch, before the show, about the whole midnight release things or whatever. Because the last midnight release I went to was Hogwarts, and then I think before that might have been Ragnarok. I'm not sure, but when I went to those midnight releases, it was maybe like 20 or 30 people, right? You know what I mean? At Hogwarts, it was maybe like 20 or 30 people and stuff like that, right? Because it was the PS5 and Series X only, right? So there weren't a lot of people on the PS4. But when I went to this one, because sometimes I do the midnight release because sometimes GameStop releases it at 9. At least over here in where I'm at in Texas,
9
right? They
p.m.
release
releases,
9 p.m. or or 11 p.m. because it's 12 p.m. Or 12 a.m. Eastern and whatever, right? But they called me Monday and they were like, hey, we're doing the thing and you come here at 3 o'clock. We'll get you your little ticket or whatever. Then you can come back at 11 and stuff like that. And you won't have to, wait in line or whatever. And when I went there at 3 o'clock, there was already a long line. I was actually like, I was like, are you what? Because usually when I do that, I'm usually the only person going there, right? Because my GameStop it's not really crowded or anything like that. It's relatively small. And I'm like, damn, there's already people, like there was already like at least 30 or 40 people there, right? And then when I went to the midnight, I was like, bro, I haven't seen it was like 80, 90, maybe like 100 people or something like that, right? I was like, I haven't seen a line this long at a midnight release since for me personally, since like GTA 5, and it was just like, man, it was incredible. I was like, damn, I haven't had this feeling again. The lady in front of me, she didn't know how to speak English. She spoke Spanish. I know how to speak Spanish. So she was asking me what her daughter is like, wait, what is all these big boxes that are coming out? And I was trying to tell her that's the collector's edition. The people behind me, they were talking about, what's their favorite games in the series. I got in the conversation. My brother, who's a casual, he got the game. He's been texting me all night like, oh, shit, this shit is crazy, and telling me all sorts of different things. It's definitely a monument thing going on here with Zelda. And the first numbers that they put out the first 3 days or the first week, I can't even imagine what it's going to be. That shit's going to be huge.
Yes, crazy.
Like I said, I remember, now that I think about it, I remember the exact last time I had a midnight like that. And it's funny that it was another Nintendo game that did it. And it was when Smash Brothers came out, because I remember sitting in the store. It was because we were doing Smash Brother tournaments on Brawl, and I remember sitting in the store where we were doing it, and the video game awards were on, and we were watching it because that's where they announced when they started announcing all the characters, the next character for Smash and everything, and all the people were just going crazy. Because that's when they announced Joker was going to be the first DLC character in Smash, and everybody in the whole store erupted. People was like, I felt like people were crying in there because it was a whole nother energy.
Yeah.
that was happening when
Mhm.
that type of stuff happens. And like I said, that was the last time that I actually felt like, as a gamer, because I do a lot of midnights and stuff like that, early releases, Hogwarts, even God of War. When the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 came out, we did midnights, and those were all great experiences in themselves. But I say, as a gamer, like you just said, Mooch, you want to enjoy stuff like that
I
because
do.
there's not too many times that gamers just get together
Yes.
and have something so common like a game like Zelda, where everybody knows. It's like they're just talking about their favorite experiences and things that they said. People are showing people what their characters look like in Breath of the Wild because they went back and they just was out there playing with their games and stuff because they just have fun. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that kind
That's
of gets lost in all of
And
this.
that's
when
a
it's all
great
said and
point
done.
for it. That's what we're all here to do. And I got a couple of super chats here, and I'll let Eric go. I don't usually go in reverse order. Eric, one of the super chats, just so I say, he's God Emperor Sofa King. He says, when you were giving your example, and guys, by the way, shout out to Sarah in the chat. They're like, Mooch, we got to get past this. This is the last. We're gonna go through these super
It's the
chats
biggest
here.
game of the year, man.
And then I know, but you know how it is, Forte. Everybody wants to talk about the other parts of the news in
they
the
want
week.
to talk about games that's not even out yet.
Yes, absolutely. And deals that haven't gone through.
Yo, facts.
But they say, Eric,
They don't want to talk about the game that just currently released. They want to talk about the politics around the other
That's-
games that ain't released.
Right.
Chris,
Exactly.
that's
Right.
exactly what it is, Chris. Shout out to God Emperor. He says, what does that have to do with Xbox? So I think, Eric, he's asking again about how you were making the culture reference.
Oh, he wants to know what does culture have to do with Xbox?
Well, he was saying, what the hell does this have to do with Xbox? I think when you were going, and I apologize, maybe I'm reading it wrong. When you were saying this is, the mindset between people who are playing Zelda right now, and maybe some people are critiquing it for its flaws. And you said the Xbox ecosystem, and that ecosystem stayed true to Xbox despite their flaws. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak on it. I wanted to give you a chance.
I don't know. I don't want to go in on him or anything like that. I don't know what
No,
he's
no,
really
no.
talking about. But he maybe he missed what we were talking about earlier when people were talking about energy keeping and everything like that.
Yes.
So that's kind of like alluding back to that. But outside of that, if he's kind of saying, well, what does any of that have to do with Xbox? I think if that's what he's asking and as he's kind of coming at it that way, he knows exactly what I mean by that.
Yeah, I think he knows too.
Yeah. That's the
Does
funny
any-
thing.
Does
No, go ahead.
anybody remember 2007, where everywhere you went in the world had a Halo 3 banner up somewhere?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Forte.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. It was.
Do
If
you
you watch
remember
movies and
when-
shows, 360 and all that stuff was everywhere.
Do you remember
Xbox was
going to?
everywhere.
Do you remember going to like a Funko or a GameStop or a EB Games and literally seeing 200 to 300 people standing outside a store to wait to get a game with either with like a Master Chief helmet on
Yeah.
or dressed up as Katana or something like that? These are all things that used to happen, and that's why that is so relatable to this, because it wasn't like Microsoft wasn't there at some. Something happened. Well, we all kind of know what happened. They stopped really caring about, their first party offerings past 2011. But the biggest thing that actually happened was the fact that gamers you can only treat gamers so bad, and to the point where they just like, you know what, I'm just gonna move on, and I just can't really trust what you're doing and stuff. And they had it. They had everything that Nintendo has now. They had everything that PlayStation had then, and they let it blow away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the
can I say
problem.
this? Can I say this? I never quite know who I'm talking to. Obviously, that's social media. You never really know the age or the experience or what somebody is
True.
who's coming at you or whatever, right? But I'll say this: I know my truth, and I've lived through all of it. Mooch, you lived through all of it. Forte, Slow-Mo, you guys have
Yep.
you've seen it, right?
Mhm.
So if someone's coming at me, especially if somebody who says they've been an Xbox fan forever, it's like, then you know better. So what are you talking about? You were there, OG, through the middle of 360 when Peter Moore and Seamus and all those guys were putting it down, and they were so ballsy they went to Nintendo and said, yo, we want to buy you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
just trying to do whatever they could to get in. There was a hunger with it. So I don't know. I'm kind of cautious about who I kind of get into things with, because it's like, I don't feel I was an Xbox consumer to the, like, they moved me off of PlayStation. Like I would say I'm almost agnostic in my consumerism. Like if you're talking crazy to me, I'm done. right?
Yeah.
So when Sony's like, yo, you'll get a second job to get this PS3, I'm like, you think I will? All right, I'll see you when you get your senses back, player.
You're like, who are
And
you
at that
talking
point,
to?
Well,
Yeah, Microsoft at that point was laying it down. I was like, so multi-plat to the first party stuff, I was all in on the Xbox, OG through the middle of 360, and all of a sudden they stopped talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went after the COD deals. They went after this. They went after they focused more in on, you know, milking gears and kind of moving back off of Halo. And Forte's 100% right. When you want to talk about midnight launches, there were no bigger midnight launches than Halo.
My lord, that's the truth.
There was a fever when those games hit.
The biggest, I used to go to midnight launches. I used to live up the street from this GameStop. And so pretty much anytime there was a midnight release, at the time, it was me and 4 other guys. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and we just all slept on the couch pretty much and bought every single game because we had infinite money since rent was like $85 a month, basically.
Nice.
Yes.
And we'd go there to a lot of midnight releases. And the Halo 3 midnight launch was so freaking big, like lying down the block. But that's part of what's blowing my mind a lot about all these videos of the Tears of the Kingdom release, because I swear a lot of those videos, maybe it's just that those are the videos that are going viral, so the ones I'm seeing, those are bigger than the freaking Halo midnights that I saw, which were like
probably
record-breaking in my
so.
mind.
Yeah, probably so. But like I said, the last thing, because I know we want to move on to something else, but I always try to add a little bit of perspective to everything. Back in 2001, think about your TV now is light. You can pick your TV up, move it to another room by yourself.
Yep.
Back in 2001, we were playing on Trinitrons and stuff that was 300, 400 pounds.
Yep.
And Microsoft literally had people carrying whole 300 and 400 pound TVs to other people's houses, not just moving them in your own house. You were taking a TV and a console to other people's houses to enjoy a game called Halo.
Yeah, that's
Not
wild.
only that, remember
it was a
LAN?
complete
the LAN parties.
understanding of what gaming truly was then.
You had to buy that funky network adapter thing to link multiple Xboxes together to do private network plays. It's like people were like literally online investigating how private networks work to play multiplayer.
D-Links and Links has literally made their name off of what Xbox was doing because everybody had to have some type of hub to do that.
That's
crazy.
True. No, that's how far we've come. And that's just how monumental that's why Chris is right. Let's not talk about how great the Zelda release is. And I'm not saying that you guys have to enjoy the game. Like Chris has said himself, if you don't enjoy the game, that's fine. But like this is a huge event if you call yourself a gamer. I think it's just something that you know, it's almost like it's not even something that happens once a year. It happens once every 4 or 5 years if you're lucky. So it really is something to live through. Shout out to True Witty. He goes, what's wrong with wanting a better console for Nintendo? I don't think you're hearing anybody say that. Some of these are older too, guys. Remember, this is when we were having other conversations. I don't think anybody is saying, True Witty, that we don't. I think everyone on this panel, I hate to speak for other people's wallets, but I'm sure whether it be day 1 for some on the panel, maybe day 365 for others, they would buy a Switch too. I think they would eventually have it in their house.
Hell yeah! That's something that people don't, unless somebody is like an extreme Nintendo fan, and they're like, "Oh no, the Switch is fine." Like, no, of course the Switch is outdated. Of course is lacking in a lot of things. Of course, you know, at least for me, I want a more power. Like, I wish they would have done the same thing as Breath of the Wild, released a more powerful Switch. I wish they would and stuff like that. But at this point, it is what it is. But you know, but it's not going to stop me from playing the game. It's not going to stop me from enjoying the game as is. And the game still looks good. Like, it still looks good. Obviously, you compare it to other games, it looks nowhere near, you know, the console brothers and stuff like that. The console bigger brothers, right? But you know, it's still. But I know there's another Switch on the horizon, because usually when there's a major Zelda release, it's usually released at the end of a at the end of a Nintendo console, or right at the beginning, but it's on the last console. So, for example, like I think Majora's Mask, that was like the last major game on the N64 before they went to the GameCube, and then Twilight Princess was the last game on the GameCube. Granted, it did launch on the Wii at around the same time, and then Skyward Sword was the last game on the Wii in 2011 before they released the Wii U in 2012, and then Breath of the Wild was the last game on the officially the last game on the Wii U, but it launched with the Switch. So I truly believe, you know, since Tears of the Kingdom is coming out this year, I think that There's probably a high possibility we may get the next, whatever the Switch is, Switch 2, Super Switch next year.
I think
But I don't know.
I think 2024
that's
is
true.
that's a reasonable bet. I would be. I'd put,
I wish we had a new Switch, man. Nobody's on this panel saying that the Switch is fine as it is. It's beyond showing its age at this point.
It's literally two different discussions. Like, you can say, I understand that Zelda is the best this hardware can currently do, while also saying I wish Nintendo had better hardware at the same time. Like, it's literally
Yes.
two different discussions.
Mhm.
And I know it's
Those are
like
not
people,
contrast.
yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's silly. Like the latest super chat, which shout out to that guy for doing the super chat just so, but like that's not what people are saying at all about
Mhm.
Xbox. It's just funny how people conflate things and literally throw up straw man arguments about something that's not even really being discussed. And that's just, I mean, I'm sorry, I just got back, so.
no, that's fine. Slow-mo.
I think I finally came in at the end of the Zelda argument, the
Yes,
Zelda discussion. So
literally
I
the
can speak
next,
now.
the next two super chats move us right into the next topic. Shout out to the great Royal Boyle 78. Great to have Royal Boyle here. He says, "What's good, Crossfire Mooch? Hope everyone's having a great night. Listen, no matter the price of games, bottom line is you want it, you're going to pay for it." Royal Boyle, I know that you are a Mooch maniac at heart because I've been saying that year after year after year. If you want to get into a club or a certain restaurant and that restaurant's dish is too expensive, but you have to have that dish, that restaurant, that chef has the recipe. You're gonna have to pay for it. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if we're talking about food. It doesn't matter if we're talking about sneakers. It doesn't matter what we are talking about. If you want it, you have to pay for it. So shout out to Royal Boyle. I appreciate him being here. And then, I guess I'll read, by the way, Biggity08, I want to say one thing. Shout out to Big. I'm going to get to your super chat in a second. I'm going to read Face 23 here because I see a lot of people talking about it online today too, and it is a different subject. Shuhei or Herman may have visited Pixel Opus and Deviation, assessed their progress, and ultimately decided to pull the plug. You see Redfall, question mark. We're not doing that here, in quotes. Sony. I'm not sure if that was Face with his quotes. I think he's paraphrasing for Sony. So I guess I'll go ahead and change subjects, and I'll go to Slow-Mo to start this. Slow-Mo, we know that is Pixel Opus, I hope I'm saying it right, closed,
Yeah.
right? And then Deviation, which is not a Sony company, okay? They don't own them. They didn't acquire them, but they were heavily, if not fully, funding whatever game they were working on. To get to Face's point here, a lot of people are coming down hard on PlayStation and Sony for these either closing or pulling money back. If they don't like what they see as an investor, aren't they actually doing something in a business sense that makes sense for them, or are they supposed to just let the project happen? Right? Is it charity? We're not dealing with charity here.
It's not charity, and it's unfortunate that
it's very unfortunate. Yes,
my heart's out to the 90 people who lost their jobs.
That's right.
Deviation, and hopefully they find something new, a new position somewhere.
Yes, and they will. I think they will.
But that's it. Like, this either they did an internal review.
Yeah.
And either the game that their multiplayer first-person shooter game that's supposed to be exclusive to Sony PlayStation got canceled, or they rescoped it to a smaller kind of project where we're not going to need all these people, because studios had grown to about like 150 developers. So getting rid of 90 isn't everybody, but that's enough that this is whatever they're working on is not a huge AAA scale project at this point. And so that's unfortunate. But again, this is what happens when a level of quality that the person that's spending the money funding the game feels like it's not there yet, or it's not going to be there. This isn't about, oh, you need more people.
Right.
Oh, here's some feedback. We want you to change these things, and then we can meet again in 6 months to see where you're at. Nah, we don't like it. We don't think this is going to work. Like, that's what happens. And this is what happens all the time. And even those who will be like, oh, look at Sony shutting things down and whatnot. I mean, like, hey, Microsoft used to do that too.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, before they actually stopped caring about the level of quality of these games, they're actually paying attention to where their games that they were marketing was actually doing, they would stop these projects too.
Slow-mo,
So
can I
this
just
is
give
normal
two
business.
can I give two examples, Slow-mo? So you have
Mhm.
Lionhead Studios, they closed completely, very similar to the Pixel Opus situation. Not saying it's a
Mhm.
one-for-one studio size or anything like that, but they closed that down. And then they didn't feel what they saw in Scalebound was good. So they didn't own those folks, but they legitimately they said we're not going to invest any more money. We're done with this.
Right. Yeah. Well, once upon a time, ago, Obsidian, when they were still independent, was working on a very ambitious MMO for the Xbox One, and the technology just really wasn't there to make their vision come to, like, be realized, like be something that could actually happen. And the game was canceled, and Obsidian, went through a really rough time. Big AAA studio, that a lot of that studio was being funded by the money that Microsoft was paying them at the time to make that game. That money went away. They had to pivot and make some changes, and that's where Pillars of Eternity comes from. And the studio turned out fine, but that's business. Like, it's not Microsoft isn't going to fund the studio because they don't want people to lose their jobs, but the game that they're making isn't going to work. It's
Yeah.
just, no one's doing that. Nintendo's not doing that. No publisher is doing that. This is just business as is. So it's unfortunate, and I know a lot of people were pretty hyped for whatever, because a lot of Deviation devs used to work on Call of Duty. So I know a lot of people had high hopes for whatever they were working on. But it is what it is. Would you rather some trash come out?
Right.
And then
Right.
you're upset that you paid money for some garbage, or they realize this isn't to the level of quality that we expect for games that we're going to be funding, whether it's first party, second party, whatever,
Mhm.
and we're going to move on to something that we can actually believe in.
We always say this, right? And DC, I'll go to you on this one. DC, we always say on these shows, and we say it, I hear it on a lot of other shows. Say, there's people working at Sony and Microsoft, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, that they're paid a lot more money than we are, and they are smart individuals that work there. I mean, you have to see these closings, like Slow-mo just said. They must have seen something that they didn't like, and they retracted. In this case, with a Deviation, they retracted their money, it seems. Seemingly, the report, I saw the report that came out. By the way, everyone, including this show, we're kind of taking that headline with a little bit of meat on the bone, and we're running with a story. By the way, they even said they've reached out to Sony PlayStation. They have not gotten anything back. As far as I saw from VGC, I haven't seen anything past their first reporting of it. So, DC, where are you on this when you see these studios close under these pretenses? Are you more upset about them, or are you more of, well, maybe they weren't making the games that Sony and PlayStation originally thought they would put out. They weren't getting their dividends back. This is business. I mean, this has been going on since any of us were even born.
I'm very mixed on it because this is actually my video for tomorrow. I already have it filmed. Basically, the
Nice.
whole crux of it is that I guess I'm very much of this mindset where I wish we had seen what it was. Like, I guess technically,
Yeah.
it's none of our business, but it's like I'm curious. One of the things I saw somebody was saying on Twitter was that it does seem like Sony is very much focusing on big narrative heavy adventures that have like deep riveting stories. I wonder if they were making something that was like cute and quirky and cutesy. Like their previous game, Concrete Genie, was fantastic.
Right.
But let's face it, that's not a color palette you typically see in Sony games. I kind of wish, even though it's not really up to the gamers here, I kind of wish we had seen it because I don't know, they had a good track record. I'm kind of curious of
Yeah.
like, man, what did they do? Maybe it was a scale bound situation. I actually love that analogy of like maybe it was something that was just so early on. It was like supposed to be a tiny little indie game, and maybe they said it's going to take another 3 years. And they went, nope, we're not paying for 3 more years for a game that's selling for $20 or getting put on PlayStation
Right.
Plus.
Yeah, these are the variables we don't know. So we only speak in, we kind of make our hypothesis and run with it. But I mean,
and look, I do agree with DC about that. I kind of hope with in regards of any of this stuff with Sony is that they kind of keep their focus on creativity,
Mhm.
because we kind of saw that with Sean Layden, and when he was there, that they would have like some smaller titles that definitely didn't have the kind of budget that God of War had or The Last of Us, but they were creative and different and still high quality. Like that's what you want. Like I think the level of quality is paramount to everything. But if you also don't want every single one of your games to all be kind of like in the same format, you want to have some things that are every now and then, like your the name of that game that Sony Japan made with the changing
Gravity Rush.
Gravity Rush. Thank you,
Oh,
Gravity
Gravity,
Rush.
yeah.
Yeah, like a
Mhm.
good creative game like that may not sell the most, but it's a quality title that people played. Those people who did play it did appreciate. I do hope they kind of like try to retain some of that instead of just because we know they got like a dozen live service games coming out. We know they've said for a while, even before the new consoles came out, that they were going to focus in more on big AAA projects. I just kind of hope that like they could at least still fund some of the smaller things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do want to
As
say,
long as they're quality, because we don't want no trash. We don't want no 57 rated games dropping.
We don't need no Redfall.
well, that's it. And we as gamers put our faith into the staff, right? The brass at PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. That if a game is not, look at Metroid. Where's Metroid? Right? Metroid is not that was advertised ages ago. Metroid
Yep.
4, still waiting.
And they had apologized to everyone. Sorry, what they was working on wasn't to the level of quality we expected. We fired them. We gave it back to Retro. We'll let you know where that's at in a few years, and that's fine. Like I think that's the smart idea. If you don't believe in it and you think it's gonna suck, then cancel the game. Take the amount of money you already spent on it as a loss. It is what it is, and then you actually either cancel the project or you rescope it and give it to someone else that could actually get the job done.
Yeah, that's just what it comes down to. And I think a lot of times I love the way that the panel kind of approached this because I also think that all these people, we know the pedigree that was at Deviation. Maybe the game just wasn't coming together. But
Yeah.
I feel very confident that these folks are going to land on their feet and they're probably going to be going and working for other PlayStation studios. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, so far as that is definitely not a good look of the optics on it. Deviation, that's a company I was never really excited for because one, they haven't made anything, and I haven't seen anything that they're making, so I can't get excited about it. And two, I know people say, what is it, like ex Call of Duty devs and stuff like that, right? Whenever I hear that, like, oh, there's this new studio that started and it has ex Rockstar devs or ex Ubisoft devs.
yeah.
Those games never really pan out to be what we expect
noticing
from
that
like developers that comes from those studios.
I'm noticing that too, Chris. I really am. I've started to pay attention to that every time we're made from the original makers of Modern Warfare 2 comes, and you're like, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, all right, well, that sounds like it's going to be good. And then all of a sudden, I'm not saying it's bad, but it hasn't always lived up to the pedigree of the resume of the individuals. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. It turns out it was 6 QA testers.
Right.
It's like they didn't really make
Reminds me of
anything.
Scary Movie when
Yeah.
there was 800 like from the guys who made Scary Movie, and it's like Epic Movie, which is like 2 bad jokes in 9.5 hours.
exactly.
Just like-
So you got to
Yeah.
take all that with a grain of salt.
I think a good example of that was with Black Rock.
Black Rock, yeah.
Studios that
Made-
did Back for Blood, and all the marketing was like
Yes.
Left
from
4
the devs
Dead,
from
right?
Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, we were the
But
Left 4
then
Dead.
when people looked into the details, this was a studio of 100 people, and only 6 of them worked for the studio that actually made Left 4 Dead games. And so it wasn't even like they acted it like this was the entire team from Left 4 Dead. And then you play the game and clearly like, nah, this ain't the same. This
from a
ain't the
couple
same
guys
game.
who like
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, the only people that did something was like somebody said in the chat, Respawn. But even with like Respawn, right? Like Titanfall was great when it first came out,
Yeah.
but it died off. But it died off quick. And then Titanfall 2 was like a commercial flop. It was an amazing game. I love Titanfall 2,
Yeah.
but it was a commercial flop. It wasn't until what is it, Apex Legend is when they now they're competing with like Call of Duty and stuff like that. But yeah, even with that, even like as talented as they were, and they made an amazing game with Titanfall. it still couldn't like live up to what the expectation was that this was supposed to be like the Call of Duty killer because it's made from the ex-COD devs.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said it when first started hearing rumblings that Sony was funding. Initially, it was 10 live service games. Then we found out it was 12. I said it then. I'm like, vast majority of these games, they either not going to come out or they're going to come out and bomb. What Sony's really hoping is that like one or two games really hit, really catch on, because then it makes all of the money they spent on the 12 games worth it. Because successful live service games make a shit ton of money. And if you could make all your money back and then some, if one of these games turns out to be a hit, and that's all they really care about. Just one or two of them really catch on, gets a massive community of faithful people who every season, every battle pass, they jump on it and spend that money, and they're in there year after year after year. That's money that's always going to make you money down the line. And that's what they care about. They don't really care whether deviation didn't work out. All right. I mean, they planned on this. They didn't know whether deviation was going to be one that was going to work out, but they planned on that happening from the very start.
Yeah. And yeah, like, and they said I was like 2 weeks ago, whatever. I think Herman Holtz did an interview talking about, well, we're not just doing Fortnite clones or Destiny clones or whatever. And that sounds good, right? That sounds good when you hear it, but they still got to deliver on it, and I still don't think like a lot of these ones are going to be as successful as what they're hoping. Maybe hopefully, to me, I'm hoping something like Factions is one that's like mega successful, right? Like Factions 2 or whatever, right?
Right.
But
yes,
but,
please.
But we'll see. I mean, Sony, they when it comes to single player games, like they don't really miss a lot. You know what I mean? Except for like maybe people could say Days Gone, even though I enjoy it, but they don't really miss. With live service, they've had misses, and even the ones that they like published themselves and got funding for and stuff like that. That they themselves went out and sought out, and they themselves said, "Hey, we want this as an exclusive." Was like stuff like Predator, which was like flop, or stuff like Destruction All Star, which was a flop, and stuff like that. So we still gotta see what Sony does.
Yeah,
with live service.
But Chris, I agree with Chris, but I also kind of also feel that's the right way to go about it. When they talk about doing different kinds of live service games, you never really know what's going to hit. But what we do know is you look at a lot of the ones that are successful, they take proven game design ideas, but then they make them unique. Like you don't want a clone of Apex Legends, because like why would somebody play your game when they could go play Apex Legends?
Correct.
Like, so you gotta bring something to the table that's different and unique that people can't get anywhere else.
You have to admit,
but
though,
it's
Slow-Mo,
also familiar for them.
Slow-Mo, that's a great point. There's a distinct difference here when we're talking about Warzone, Apex, or Fortnite, right? I mean, I know you play all those. I've played all those. There's a distinct difference. Whether it be the feel, of course, the atmosphere, there's the way that the guns react, whatever it is, in each of those categories hits somebody differently. But if another company, like people are like, why can't Battlefield just make a Warzone? Well, like you said, why would people leave Warzone to go play the exact same thing over there? So it's not as simple as people think, and to hit that creative spark and have it hit with the audience, that is a very unique thing. So when you see some of these big games that are holding out, like the Apexes, the Fortnites, the Warzones, and yeah, they've all taken a dip here and there because it has gotten, a little bit of stale. You can see even me, I don't play Warzone nearly as much as I used to. You guys know I never stopped talking about it, but I have kind of dwindled away from it. It has gotten a little, I don't want to use the word boring, but I guess that would be the word. It's just gotten a little bit like long in the tooth. You know what I mean? It's just not something that I like to do on a day-to-day basis. I want to say shout out to, he waited patiently, and he also joined the channel. Biggity08, Big, thank you so much, Big. I appreciate you joining the channel. Big says here, and this brings us to our next topic. He says, PlayStation and Xbox make different games. Why does everybody want Xbox to make PlayStation games? Xbox already said they're not trying to be Sony. So, you know what? DC, I'll start with you again, and then Eric, I want to hear what you have to say as well. I got a question for you guys. There's still a lot of conversation after Phil Spencer's interview last week. People are still kind of scratching their heads, almost wanting Phil to come out and maybe, kind of reinterpret what he meant when he said, us making good games doesn't necessarily, I understand what he means by it doesn't tip the scales of the console war or the console sales. him going from third to first with maybe one game. But you would be amazed when you make 2, 3, 5 good games in the course. So I'm even giving them a generation. I'm not talking about in a year or two. 5 good games in the course of a generation could tip the scales in a different direction. But again, shout out to Big. He's saying here, DC, why is it people want Xbox to make PlayStation games? I personally don't want Xbox to make PlayStation games, but DC, how would you answer Big's question? And also, how are you handling a week and change after Phil's comments after the Kind of Funny interview?
I think I'm still a little bit shocked. I think we're not going to see Phil for a while. I think that interview went so poorly. I think he's probably in a bunch of board meetings and handling a lot of Xbox stuff behind the scenes. But I guess my thought is that I feel like the Xbox brand is literally weaker than it has ever been. Last year, they had 2 mainline games. One of them was like a paper mache looking freaking RPG in Pentiment, and then Grounded, which already was out in early access, got its 1.0 release. 2 games. Compare it to PlayStation or Nintendo, which both had like 4+ major chart topping selling games. Like, I think what a lot of people are trying to say that's getting a little bit mucked up on the internet is I think we're just saying we want more Xbox games. Like, we want you to match the pace and release schedule of the competitors. Like, it's just crazy that if you only have an Xbox, I mean, you're playing a lot of third-party games or you're not turning your console on. Whereas if you want to be a Nintendo gamer and only play first-party stuff, you can. If you want to play freaking PlayStation stuff and only play PlayStation Studio official games, you can always have stuff to play. I don't know. I guess that's my thing, is that I wish that Xbox would match that output. Not even necessarily the quality or the tone, like literally just make more.
Yeah, and it's funny, DC, and you step back on that, and I was gonna say I was gonna say the quality. The games, like, I don't need an over-the-shoulder third-person Joel Ellie game from Xbox. I don't. But what I would like is Redfall. Listen, I played it. I'm gonna say this much, okay? Redfall I think it has potential. The problem is the quality's not there, DC. I don't care. Give me 3 more types of Now, hear me out, audience, because I know the audience is gonna stop and go, no, whoa. Give me 3 more Redfalls, but at the quality level that it would score an 82 to an 87. You know what I mean? I'm not even asking for a 90. I'm asking for an 82 to an 87. And I'm using these odd Metacritic numbers just to give people an idea of what I'm trying to say here. So I mean, E, I'll go to you. And I like what DC said. E, where are you on all this? Not only answering Big's question, but and shout out to Big, by the way. He did another super chat here just because he wanted to follow up. He says, listen, I'm an Xbox fan, but I got a PlayStation 5 for the exclusives. And that's what DC just said. Big, nobody blames you for that. I think a lot of people on the panel feel the same way. You get a PlayStation 5 because even when you're done with the new exclusives, like DC said, you've got a plethora of a games library to play on PlayStation for all their exclusives dating back to the PS1. But E, where are you on what we kind of, the state? I'm calling it the state of Xbox here after the interview last week.
I'll work in reverse. I'll answer first, like the thing Big just said about, he's an Xbox fan, but he has a PlayStation 5 for the exclusives. And I would say that's where, some of Phil's statement kind of works against him, because that would work in reverse. If Microsoft was offering exclusive games that really spoke to people, there would be PlayStation guys who probably wouldn't have a problem picking up an Xbox just to play some of those games. I don't know if they jumped to the Game Pass pool, but they would probably pick it up just to say the same exact thing. Like, people used to kind of say, well, I have a PlayStation and Xbox, and Nintendo's like my secondary, console. That it depends on who you talk to, right? So I would agree with him on the first super chat that he put in. And Mooch, we talked about this before on past podcasts where we said, no, I don't necessarily need Microsoft to do what Sony's doing. And I guess what they mean by that is the third person, over the shoulder, whatever. But I need Xbox to show me that they have some kind of life, some kind of plan, And what's funny is the conversation of I saw like even before Phil's like interview, and even more so now, Xbox dudes were kind of saying like, well, I shouldn't feel like a second-class citizen as a console gamer, which is something we had been saying in the middle of the Xbox One generation. To a lot of pushback, when we were like, hey, where are the games? And dudes were saying, What are you talking about, bro? There's plenty of stuff to play right now. Just give them time. They just need time. There's plenty of stuff for you to go play. What are you bitching about?
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of funny. You kind of saw, you know, when I said we have a crystal ball, we kind of saw where it was. Now, my pushback would be, I've seen Xbox dudes say, well, I don't want them to be like Sony, and I don't want Sony to be like Xbox. At the same time, I see a lot of you guys saying this thing where Sony needs to go day and day. They need to do what they're doing in the Game Pass thing. And I'm like, but you saying that you don't want them to be like the same. And I keep saying,
That's a great point, E.
if Game Pass was really moving the needle and just wrecking stuff the way some Xbox dudes want you to believe, the market would dictate that. Because the one thing none of these guys are allergic to is money and a good idea and adopting it, right? Yeah, Sony's kind of dabbling with their little tiers, which, you know, I'm subscribed to Plus. I didn't move my needle. I didn't jump up to one of the higher tiers. I stayed where I was, you know, but if the day and day thing was really doing it for Xbox, you don't think Sony would really be thinking about that?
Absolutely.
But right now they're like, why do I need to do that? That we're doing okay with what we're doing, and for the foreseeable future, we know we might dabble in adding some second party stuff or doing something like a Stray or something like that. But you guys say, you know, you don't want them to be the same, but you all kind of want them to do the same thing. You want them to adopt this idea. And a lot of that, I feel, is just because a lot of Xbox dudes want validation for Game Pass. It's because if the market leader does it, that means that Microsoft was onto something.
E, I love what I love what Eric Jackson just said. I really, really do. The voice of reason, everybody. This is why he's on the show. I mean, E, you make a good point. So, you know, the question at hand was, why does everybody want Xbox to make PlayStation games? But the other side of the coin is, why do a lot of the Xbox folks want PlayStation to follow suit with day and date and have a service-only type of mentality? That's a good point, E. Realistically, it's not. If it was working, I think Sony would dive in head first. I don't see, and Nintendo.
Sony, Nintendo.
And let me say this.
The issue is quality, period.
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I want Microsoft to do whatever Microsoft has to do to make their stamp and build their culture. Do it. I don't give a damn what it looks like. Just make me sit back and go. When the first time I saw Gears of War, you know, and that Mad World commercial,
yes,
and that Road to E3 documentary with Cliffy and Bill Gates, and he's like, "Yo, you're a little bit worried about where we're going to be," and Cliffy's like, "Yo, we're going to make it. We're going to be good." And he demoed that game on stage, and I was like, "Holy shit! I don't care what I got to do. I got to get a 360 to play that game."
Yes.
They haven't had a game like that since. They haven't had a game. They have not had a must-have game since. The piggyback of what Eric is saying, it's okay to have good games, but you gotta have, if you're going to be having a platform and you want people to not sell their PS5, but go to the store and pick up your platform, you need to provide a level of quality of game that makes people do that. Tears of the Kingdom is that kind of quality game.
Slow-mo, how many Switches did you see this week on Twitter? People going, I either sold my Switch, but I went and bought another one, or I'm going to get a Switch. And I saw Switches all week long for this game in Tears of the Kingdom. Unbelievable.
Right. And if it was just Fire Emblem Engage, which I'm not saying that's a bad game, that's a good game, right? But that's not a game that people, I'm about to go out there and go buy a Switch for.
Right.
It's a good game, but it's not that level of game. But we're talking about, because I go on Twitter and I see people throwing out this list with Metacritic scores of like Deathloop, Psychonauts 2. They're going down the list of games that have come out on Xbox over the past 2 or 3 years and saying none of them are as low as Redfall is. That's true, but none of them are a 90 Metacritic game either. None of them are games that people say, I have to play this game. Oh my God, have you not played this game yet? This game is revolutionizing certain things. Even just talking about Gears of War, there was a whole mode named from Gears of War that people call it Horde mode. Every time you see it in any other game, it's Horde mode. It revolutionized cover shooting. They haven't had a game since that has had that kind of impact on the gaming industry.
Right.
That Gears of War sold 360s, even to the point where when Red Ring of Death was happening, usually people would be like, "Man, F Xbox, this thing keeps breaking on me." But people was like, I think I'm gonna send it to Microsoft and wait for it to come back, or I'm gonna get another one. I'm gonna buy another one, because that's the kind of games that you have. When you have can't miss games. All
it
the
was
other
crappy.
games that are good are great, but those can't miss games is the reason why people gravitate to your platform.
So Slow-Mo, I
Right.
got to ask your DPS partner, Forte, I got a question for you, and it comes from God Emperor Sofa King, which, by the way, I want to read his super chat first. He says, what is quality? But that's not the question I have for you, and we'll get to that, Sofa King, in a second. He says, that's completely false. So he's not agreeing with me, Slow-Mo, DC, or Eric here. He says, this is completely false. He goes, what drives a platform is where people and their friends play, not one single AAA game from the platform holder. Now, Forte, you used to be on record a long time ago saying on the show, you said, hey, listen, I'm excited for my Series X because that's where I'm going to be playing Destiny with my friends. Now, listen, the only reason I picked on you, Forte, is that just rang a bell of memory with me, what you're saying. But you're also in the business, Forte. Yes, where your friends play definitely can sway. But don't your friends usually go to where the games are and then you kind of sway with your friends that way? I mean, how are you attacking that question from Sofa King?
No, it's absolutely the truth because gotta look, the reason Call of Duty was so influential in last generation is because a lot of people flipped systems because PlayStation got the marketing rights for it and everybody wanted to get the early content. So it started with streamers and started with them saying that they were switching over. They started taking their communities. And once they started taking their communities, when everybody's friends was be like, hey, where everybody's playing at, they're going to go over there. So it's definitely a thing. So your friends do at some type of micro level do really influence that. But games is what makes people inherently buy the systems that they buy. Like I always tell people, you could buy any system out there pretty much with when it comes to Xbox or PlayStation, and 95% of those games are on both platforms. But that 5% is the one thing that really makes the difference for a lot of people. And sure, and a lot of people may only be 15 to 20, maybe 30% of the whole base. But that 30%, think about PlayStation 4. That 30% of people that bought a PlayStation 4 just because the exclusive games were that great, that's somewhere around that's like 40 million people.
Yeah.
50 million people. So, yes, casual gamers, yes, if you're a casual gamer, you're going to play games mostly with your friends. That because those are the ones that you enjoy playing games with. That's why that's why you're a casual gamer, because it's not just the games that are making you play, it's the experiences you're having with all the other people around gaming. But the gamers that want to play great games and buy games like Zelda and go out and spend $350 on the Switch just for one game, or they go out and buy Spider-Man Miles Morales on PlayStation 5 and they say, I don't want to play it on PlayStation 4, I want to play it on PlayStation 5. So they just wait till a PlayStation 5 is available to do it and willing to spend $500 for a $70 game. They're doing that because the game to them matters and they want to play it in the best quality or best light that they possibly can.
Right.
So two things can be right, but it depends on the type of gamer you are. And everybody on this panel is considered a hardcore gamer because we have everything, so we don't have to exclude anything. And as long as you're doing that, the games will always matter. That some people like me and Slow-Mo talk about all the time. We're mostly Slow-Mo's a PC gamer. I play predominantly on Xbox. We both have PlayStation 5s. I haven't turned my PlayStation 5 on since God of War Ragnarok. But guess what? When Spider-Man 2 comes out at the end of the year, more than likely I'm going to boot my PlayStation up. I know Slow-Mo's going to boot his PlayStation up when that comes out.
Right,
I know when Final Fantasy 16 comes out, I'm booting my PlayStation up because guess what? That's the only place I can play that game. And I'm already glad I have the system to do it. But if I didn't have the system, I would go out and buy that system. So games definitely do trigger the experience of you wanting to buy more platforms, even if it's something that you won't play all the time.
No, that's a great answer, Forte. And I'm glad you did say that. Shout out to Thumbs. He says, and we got to give a tribute here. He says, I feel like we need to contact Celine Dion. We need a soundtrack for the disaster that is Xbox. Shout out to the round table. They do a great job with that. Shout out to King Thresh. That's awesome. Man. Shout out to Thumbs. The great Jimmy Harrison, he says, Eric is on point. Where is that game that says, this is why I bought a Series X, end quote. Gears of War was that game for 360. You know, the great Jimmy Harrison, he doesn't just get that name for nothing. That makes a good point. I mean, that's what a lot of people have been waiting for. And it's, here we are, we're 3 years into this generation, this November, and everyone's really still waiting for it. I mean, I guess there's some people who are Halo fans that say, well, I thought Halo Infinite was good. I can't stop you, and I'm not going to say you're wrong. If you enjoyed Halo Infinite, I tip my cap. But for me, Halo Infinite, the campaign felt like it was half done. It was very repetitive, and the multiplayer was very good, but not a lot there. You know, limited maps. I mean, the battle pass was kind of comical. Here we are on season 3. We get shoulder pads. You know, it's like nobody cared. You know, I mean,
If you want to be nice to people, Mooch, just this is how I always say.
but
about
hey, if
Halo,
you
'cause
like it, they
Halo's
like it though. Forte, I'm not going to take that away
Halo's
from
one
them.
of my favorite franchises
Absolutely.
of all time.
Absolutely,
I love the game.
great game.
Halo Infinite it wasn't a great game. It was a good game. I mean, parts of it was great, but it was more just a good game. But it was mostly an incomplete game.
Yes,
And that was
correct.
the problem. Like, people need to separate that. If Halo had all of the things that was promised, it still has some of the technical issues and stuff like that, or even the story was, even if you kept the story the way it was, if Halo was a complete game at launch, it would have fared way better. But the moment they started pushing updates out and seasons start lasting 12 months instead of 3 calendar months, and we still don't have a date for when season 4 is going to start. They basically say season 3 is running indefinitely as of right now. That's the issue people have with that game. It's not that quality is one thing. It didn't start out the gate a great way by, the whole situation that they showed with Craig and everything. That was kind of like the beginning of everything with Halo, but then it just turned into this inconsistent mess of things happening over the course of 12 to 24 month period. And now when you look at the game, it's like, was Halo a terrible game? No. Was it a good game? Yeah, it was fun. It was great. I really did enjoy my time playing Halo, but so many things was missing from that experience from the moment that I play it. And it's
Just
the
gonna
same
try to
thing
drive a vehicle across the plane.
Exactly, and it's the same thing we say about Redfall. Think about it. So just like we've almost been saying this for a while too about Redfall, 60 frames per second, knowing that and Phil Spencer said it. 60 frames per second is on the map. We know that it's coming. It has a date. They just haven't let us know the date yet. But guess what? How many people are going to still be playing the game when that 60 frames per second update comes out? At that point, does it really matter? And that's kind of how it is with Halo.
Bingo.
By the time that they fixed all the stuff in Halo and added Forge and added campaign co-op, how many people really went back to go play Halo compared to what it was when it first came out? And that's
I'll tell you how many did. It went from 3,000 to 5,000 people playing it on Steam to 10,000 people playing it on Steam. Still down from the 250,000 people they had playing it at one point.
Yeah.
And there's that's all you gotta say when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm seeing what they're saying in the chat, and I'm like, so y'all don't understand how unique, high quality, exclusive content is what brings people to a platform. I brought up how there's 200 million people that play games primarily through PC gaming, and all of the vast majority of them play games that are just exclusive to PC. League of Legends, Valorant, World of Warcraft, CSGO. Those are not games that you get on consoles. But this is over 200 million people, which is more than what PlayStation has, was more than what Nintendo has, more than what Xbox has. They play
World of
or just
Warcraft
playing
too,
games.
like World of Warcraft. That was a big thing on PC that a lot of people got PC for.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's like, and I'm not saying that like, oh, they gotta go back. The Xbox has to go back to just the Xbox. You can have your games on all the platforms that you want. You can put your games through Game Pass, but your Game Pass ain't going to grow if you can't miss system seller level content to put in there. You gotta have the content to make people want to subscribe to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if the content's not there, it's not going to happen. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you gotta have multiple content, right? Because it's like even with like Sony, right? They have a lot of varieties of the type of system sellers you have, right? You got games like God of War that's definitely gonna get people out there to go buy systems and stuff like that, right? Then you got Final Fantasy, which is gonna get all the Final Fantasy fans to go buy their system. And then you got Spider-Man, which is going to get all the Marvel and Spider-Man fans, right?
Yeah.
To go out and buy the system. It's not just one game that's just going to make everybody it's going to make the PlayStation sell 100 million. it's a bunch of different games. They're like different, like amazing quality games and stuff like that. That okay, this game might not attract this person, but that game that's coming up at the end of this year is going to definitely attract that person. That person is definitely going to go and stuff like that. To go back, what that person was saying is like, why does people expect Xbox to be like Sony or anything like that? It's not about that. Xbox needs to be like Sony in terms of the exact same type of games as they make. Because I don't think Xbox can outdo Sony in that, a big single player blockbuster cinematic experience and stuff like that. I think Sony, is the best at that, right? But they just for what they have and the genres that they have, right? Because that's a lot of things that Xbox fans say is like, oh, we have more variety in our genres or whatever. It's just those games within those genres needs to be at the highest of quality, and needs to be some of those games that people say, hey, this is one of the best games. And Gears Tactics is just as good as XCOM, if not better, right? If they're gonna have the chokehold on Western RPGs, right? And you best believe Starfield better be on some Skyrim, you know what I mean, Fallout type of
Imagine,
type of level,
Chris,
right?
Chris, can I just piggyback right now? I'm going to ask you the question,
go
Chris.
ahead.
Chris, Starfield. How much pressure is on Starfield right now, Chris? I mean, that's you're talking about that. Starfield has to be this unbelievable. This has to be a 5-star game. I mean, there's no room for
it
right?
has to be, because it's coming from the main Bethesda team that has released some of the most successful and critically acclaimed role-playing games of all time. You know what I mean? Like Oblivion, Skyrim, like Fallout 3. Like I played all these games, right? Their gameplay usually sucks, but the worlds and the RPG mechanics and the side quests and the dynamics and stuff like that are really, really, really good. So Starfield, it's gonna have to do something that pushes beyond that. It can't just be Fallout in space. You know what I mean? Like it has to. I don't know what it is, man. Like, listen, I haven't owned an Xbox since like 2014, right? It's literally been about 10 years and stuff like that. It's not because I'm a PlayStation fanboy. It's not because I'm a Nintendo fanboy and none of that. It's like, no, it's like before they had compelling games that, like when the original Xbox One came out, I wanted to play Morrowind. I wanted to play Doom 3, right? I wanted to play Halo and Knights of the Old Republic when I was reading Game Informer magazines, reading about all these games and stuff like that, and these were exclusive to the Xbox. So I went out and got an Xbox because that's the games I wanted to play. Same thing with the 360. When I saw Gears of War and Oblivion and Mass Effect was exclusive and fucking BioShock was exclusive, you know what I mean? Like that's what got me excited about the 360, because I was like, yo, these games look absolutely amazing. When I got rid of my Xbox One 6 months after I had it, right? I had it at launch, and then I got rid of it 6 months and got a PC for about 2 years until I got the PlayStation. But ever since then, nothing has really truly spoken to me in terms of like, damn, that's a game. Not Quantum Break, not no Record, not no Crackdown.
Yeah.
Not no freaking I've never really been a big Halo fan like that. I respect the franchise, right? I really think is one of the biggest gaming franchise, like historical gaming franchise, that needs to be respected because it's Halo.
Mhm.
But I've never been a Halo fan like that, so I don't care about Halo Infinite, right? So I wasn't gonna buy an Xbox for Halo Infinite. I don't really care about Forza. I don't play Gran Turismo or none of that other shit, right? I don't even play Mario Kart. I don't really care about racing games.
Yeah.
So they haven't really had anything like they got games in the pipeline that I'm somewhat interested in, like Fable, because I love Fable, but I don't really know, because there's gonna be Playground's first like AAA third person RPG or something like that. So I'm not even too confident when it comes to that. Starfield, I have other problems with Bethesda. This is way before they got purchased. When it comes to their real-time combat, it's never really been fun to me. You know what I mean? That's something that they've always needed to improve on. And looking at the gameplay of Starfield, it didn't really nothing that I was looking at was be like, oh shit, this looks amazing. Hopefully it is.
Yeah.
But
that's where
they just need to produce quality games at a consistent basis. They don't have to get me to sell my PS5 or get me to sell my Switch or whatever. They just have to get me to be like, damn, there's enough games on the Xbox that now I have to get one because I really want to play those games.
No, that's great, Chris. Now, listen, we're at the 9 o'clock mark. I'm going to do what I like to call the speed round here, just kind of like the fire round. I've got a bunch of questions here. Shout out to Super Time Stamps. That also helps me do my my timestamps as we go into the next day. I want to get a couple more of these topics. DC, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to run through these real quick because we are over 9 o'clock, and I don't want to keep these guys from Zelda or any other great gaming or family get-togethers tonight. Hear me out, DC. I asked Chris. I got to ask you as well. What's the level? Because DC, I believe, and if I'm wrong, say Mooch, you're wrong, dude. I never said that. I believe I've heard you say, and I thought you said it on the show. You're looking forward to Starfield. So,
Oh yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
what kind of pressure could Todd Howard and his folks feel at this point? This game is delayed kind of twice, right? So it was supposed to come out last November, and then we saw it during the Xbox Bethesda showcase, and we were told everything during that showcase was going to come out before June, and then they were like, "Yeah, it's going to come out in September." So they didn't really call it a delay, but it kind of got delayed again. How much pressure is on Todd and his team and Xbox for this thing? This thing's got to come out, and it's got to hit a home run, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, the pressure could crush diamonds at this point. And I feel, I mean, it sucks because I'm sure since they started this project, they've been dedicated to it. I don't think anybody's lazy or slacking off, but I feel like the pressure is 10 times worse because there hasn't been a good Xbox game in years. And then also on top of that, this is the first original IP created by Bethesda. So a lot of people are going to be extra, hard on even the lore and stuff of like, well, you made this universe. Does it actually make sense? Is it cool?
Yeah.
I mean, from every single direction, this game has got to be a 10 out of 10. And I feel bad for him. Like, as I'm so excited for the game, I have a feeling it's not going to even be 30 FPS. Those trailers were running at 24 FPS. That recent one where he's standing in front of the screen talking like, "Hey guys, I'm Todd Howard. I'm 5'2". In that one in the background, it was also running at 24 frames a second. So I do think the game is going to have some performance issues. But even beyond that, I wonder if this game is going to nail. If it nails every other bullet point, I think it's still going to get good scores because and hell, I think a lot of the reviewers are going to be playing it on PC the same way that when Cyberpunk came out, they very much prioritized PC review codes. But man, I'm scared for them. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've said this in a video and people got a little bit irked at me, but I think if Starfield bombs, like if this gets a 5 out of 10 and low concurrent players on Steam, I do think that this is doom and gloom for the Xbox brand long term.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of people kind of feel that way as well, DC. I'm going to say this much. So I appreciate that, and I kind of feel the same way. I really do. Slow-mo, I got to ask you. I promised you we were going to talk about this, and I know there's people in the chat that want to know. I want to know what Slow-mo is thinking. Slow-mo, I pre-ordered, the ASUS ROG Ally. I did it because I have a Steam Deck, but some of the things that just bug me about the Steam Deck is because I have to go through a half an hour to 45-minute procedure. And I know some of the PC guys that are listening are like, Mooch, you're wicked embellishing here. Okay. So maybe it's not that much, but realistically, I have to do a sneak around to get the Windows on there, things like that. This comes with Windows. This will allow me to play Game Pass games natively on there. There's just a lot of perks to it. I can still play my Steam games on there. So I pre-ordered it. I'm going to play the heck out of it for 30 days to make sure I like it because I bought it from Best Buy. And if I don't like it, I'm going to return it. But Slow-mo, where were you? You were going to pre-order it. I saw you said,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pre-order it. Are you on the fence or are you still a no?
I'm still on. I canceled it, and I'm good with canceling it. Instead of getting the Ally, I'm just
Tell the
gonna
truth.
I'm just gonna upgrade my PC instead, and I'm gonna spend my money in other areas where I primarily game. I have my Steam Deck is okay. I get it. I do absolutely 1000% understand those wanting the ASUS handheld because it will be far more streamlined, far more easier to just get into things and just do what you wanted to do. Plus, it's more powerful.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't use my Steam Deck now. I don't I just don't the only time I use it is when I go on vacation, which is twice a year, and it's
So Slow-mo, would you use a handheld more if it had that Windows capability right out the box though?
no.
Okay.
Because for me, and this is just me personally, I work from home, 100% work from home. I go into the office maybe 6 times a year, so I'm always and my PC is in my office with me. So I got that. I got my PlayStation right here. Even got a Series S right here. If anyone of my friends want to play something that's not crossplay.
Oh, you got a little space heater for the winter. That's nice.
Yeah, you know. I have everything in my office that I need. And if I do go out, I'm too busy to be like, hey, well, I'll just go play something while I'm at. No, I'm not playing anything. I'm busy. So it's just like the only time I will ever really use the handheld is if I'm literally so tired, dead tired,
Yeah.
that I'm like laying in bed and I want to play something, but I can't get out of bed. 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna fall asleep 5 minutes into whatever I'm playing anyway. This is why I don't use my Steam Deck. So it's just I don't need it. So I put the money down. I spent the $730 and I sat there for like a good 2 hours as I'm working, just like, do I need this? Why do I? I'm just going to collect dust like everything. You know what? No, canceled it. I'm just going to, the same money I was going to use for that. Instead, I'm just going to get a new CPU and motherboard and probably just build a new PC then at this point.
Listen,
So.
first of all, I love how you're saying that's probably one of the best answers. You're utilizing that money in another category. Shout out to Royal Boyle. He says, I saw some videos of button sticking, a little nervous to get out the gate. Royal Boyle, that wouldn't be something that would deter me. I mean, especially since I'm getting it through Best Buy. It's not like I'm buying it through ASUS. I'm buying it through Best Buy. Best Buy has one of the best return policies. Get the extended warranty on it. Do the whole 9. Take care of yourself. I wouldn't worry about that so much. But I said this on the show last week. I'll say it again for everyone that may have not tuned in last week. I have a potential buyer for my Steam Deck. If I end up liking this after 30 days, I'm going to sell the Steam Deck because Slow-mo, I find myself not using it, but it's because I think I would rather use it for to me, I don't want to play Final Fantasy 16 on a handheld. I don't want to play you know what I mean? I'm trying to think of another, Dead Island 2 necessarily on a handheld. But there's a lot of games that are on my Steam Deck that are smaller PC games that I do like on my Steam Deck. But there's other games on Xbox, like Xbox Game Pass has a lot of games, maybe Death's Door to pick on a game just out of thin air. That's a really cool handheld game. I could play that on I have Game Pass. I might as well use it. It's it makes sense. And I'm thinking I'll utilize it more. If I find out that that's not the case in 30 days in slow-mo, I'm using the Ally as much as I'm using the Steam Deck, then I'm just going to return the Ally and I'll just keep my Steam Deck. And like you said, I'll put that money better allocated maybe towards upgrading my PC. Slow-mo, you may have just spent my $700 in a different direction. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Slow-mo. Thank you. Slow-mo, that's outstanding. Biggity's back. He says, who on the panel thinks Starfield will fail and why? That's what we were just trying to say. I don't think it's gonna. So I'll go first. We can go real quick down the list. I don't think it's gonna fail big. I do think it'll launch the way a lot of other Bethesda games have launched. And I myself personally, I'm not a big Fallout fan, and I never really got into Skyrim. So Skyrim or Fallout in space, I would have needed something else in that new IP, and maybe they'll show that to me in our next sight unseen that we haven't seen yet, coming up June 11th. But I don't think it'll fail. I do think it's going to launch probably. I would say probably a little rough, but that may be me. I'll go real quick. Chris Righteous, do you think Starfield will fail? Is the question.
I'm not. I think it's going to have a good. Honestly, personally, I'm feeling like this game is probably going to get in the 80s, mid 80s.
I think that's a success.
Yeah. I mean, if it gets below that, then something went terribly wrong. But do I think it's going to fail? I mean, they are limited with the install base on the series. But they do have I believe the PC is really what going to carry that game to success, because it's going to have the mods and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about 1,000 randomly generated planets. You already know modders are going to go crazy and create all sorts of different types of mods or whatever. So I'm not sure. It's really hard. I'm not sure, because I wasn't impressed with the last show, the 10-15 minute gameplay from the last time, and I didn't really see a lot of other people too impressed about it neither. So they're when this upcoming showcase is the Starfield showcase or whatever, that's going to be really the determining factor of at least for me, of where I gauge of what I think, if I think the game is going to be really good or not. But as of right now, I don't see anything beating I don't see that, anything beating Tears of the Kingdom or anything like that for this year. But it could be a runner up, man. It could be something that's really good if Bethesda actually builds a really high quality game and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I mean, we'll see. But people are, because we've been getting a bunch of games that have been buggy and not performing well, and you know what I mean, and things like that, right? So people, Bethesda has gotten the Nintendo Pass, right? The Bethesda has gotten the Nintendo Pass before in the past, right?
Mhm.
Was like a lot of these games that release buggy and broken and shit like that, right? But I don't know if they can afford to get that type of pass again. So it really has to be on point when it releases.
Yeah, DC, just, you can give DC, you kind of already said it. You don't believe this game will fail.
I think it might. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, the pedigree. I feel like more and more gamers trust companies. Todd Howard coming out in his leather jacket and saying it just works,
Right.
sells games, even if we all know that on some level he's lying.
It doesn't, yeah.
I also just think that the hype around this game, financially, it's going to make its money. Even if there ends up being mass refunds or something, it's going to make its money back at the end of the day. So I don't think it's going to fail, but I think it may hurt Xbox around it in order to obtain its success.
That's a good answer. E, what do you think?
I think they fail is a hard metric with where Microsoft is by what they go by, because they obviously, I mean, they don't go by sale numbers. It's like subscriptions and this and that. So in terms of that, I don't necessarily know if it will move the needle per se. Like, I think Chris hit it where I think this game will have the life it's on PC, but I don't know if it's going to be the console move.
Right.
And you ask, going into the segment, like, is there like pressure on this game? And I think there is in a way, and I would say it's some undue pressure when you just look in terms of community and Twitter community type stuff. In the grand scheme of the outside community, the actual gaming community, it's going to be interesting to see if people are willing to check the game. I don't know if that means that they'll come into Game Pass to check it or they'll actually just pick it up. I have no idea. But this is a different sort of realm for Bethesda for where they've been the last few years, because they've had the benefit of being multi-platform.
Right.
They don't really have that now. They just kind of have like the Xbox platform. And what's interesting about it is, when I say undue pressure, I think fanboys have put more pressure on this than where even like Phil and Bethesda have, as it calling it Game of the Year before we even saw any footage of it or anything like that. And I'm like, you guys kind of know who you're dealing with. You're still dealing with Bethesda. Yeah, they have the weight lifted off of them of not worrying about how to keep the lights on per se, but it's still Bethesda. And I've always been more of a fan of Bethesda Softworks. I always thought those teams were more talented than Bethesda proper. I've never been a big fan of Bethesda proper games like Fallout, Fallout or Elder Scrolls and stuff like that. It's just never really been my jam, like as far as how those games work. But I think where Starfield is, it can't skip leg day right now. It has all the pressure of what the fans have put on it. It has all the pressure of carrying the state of Xbox right now, which I wouldn't say if everything else was hitting, that's not really fair, but it is what it is. That's the situation they find themselves in. And even when you kind of go back to Phil's interview, I think a big problem where Phil's interview for me was, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about this, I could kind of tell from his interview that Phil kind of is letting the Twitterverse seep into his mental.
Yeah. I saw that to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always said, I feel like, because the first thing people started doing was, well, Jim would never do this interview and this and that. I'm like, good. I don't need these cats talking. I don't need a relationship with an executive. I don't care what Tim Cook is doing. I don't care what Jeff Bezos is doing.
Eric, yo, who is the current? What's the name of the current president of Nintendo right now? From the top of your head, 3 seconds.
Doug Bowser?
No.
No,
see, nobody. No. But that's my point.
Right.
Nobody even knows. You know what I mean? Because they're not out here doing talking and doing all this other. They're delivering on games.
You don't have.
That's a good point, Chris.
You don't have to talk to anybody.
Well, that's it.
I'm sorry. It is what it is. But what I was going to say about this, and I'll pass it back on, is just I always felt that they do too much of listening. Like it's fine, like, and that's a symptom. That's a carryover of the 2013 Xbox debacle. That's what you want to call it. They were trying to find out what they should do, talking to the community, this and that. That has bred into this thing of where, everyone wants access. They want to be connected. They want to be seen as a big shot because they get the game with Phil and do all this other stuff. But I can kind of see in his mental, he's letting that seep in. That's where you get statements of, even if this game is a 11 out of 10, it's not going to do this, it's not going to do that. And it's like, you should have a little bit more confidence in it to say, well, I think it's going to be this, and we're going to do our best to deliver this game and to make it this and this and this and that. And that's putting, again, more pressure on this game. And then you have Todd saying, well, we only have one platform to develop for now. And that's a great thing. That's a service to us. And it's like, dude, you guys keep digging this ditch, man. This game.
No, he said one last platform. But listen, I don't see a world where Todd Howard or P. Hines are not worried about sales, right? Or gonna take the whole. But it doesn't matter about sales because it's in Game Pass. Hell no, they want this game to focus. I'm pretty sure they're probably like, damn, we probably should put this game on PS5. You know what I mean? Because they want this shit to sell.
That's the conundrum, man. It's like the way Microsoft has been kind of talking is they still expect to get sales.
No, I completely hear you. I was just going to say, shout out to DC had to leave. DC's like, I'm starving. I haven't eaten all night. So I was going to say, shout out to DC, Dreamcast guys. You guys know him over on YouTube. Follow him over at YouTube and Twitter, Dreamcast guy. DC, thanks for being here. He's probably listening as he's making him something delicious to eat. I'm also starving to death. No, you gave a great example, and then Chris just backed it up. You gave a great example, and a lot of people don't really get it. Some people that are fans in the chat, this is nothing about this. No one hates Phil or anything like it. It's just Phil doesn't need to do. He doesn't need to.
A genuinely cool dude, but
yeah,
I'm not cutting Thanksgiving turkey with Phil Spencer. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
well, we don't know who the president.
You have to have some perspective on this whole thing, man. It's like
Eric, nobody knows the president of Nike. Nobody knows the president of Mercedes-Benz. Nobody knows the person. You pick anything you. We were just talking about the ASUS ROG Ally. I don't know who the president of that is. There's a couple people that are figureheads that you do know. Like Valve. Everybody knows. Is it still Gabe? I think Gabe is still running Valve.
Gabe. Like I said,
Gabe's still not doing. He's still not doing like weekly press events and things like. You know what I mean? Like he's like he just pops in. Usually he waves his hand like he's a grand marshal at a parade and he bounces. So I do feel what you feel. I think he looked like he really is. I could see Phil sitting on the couch just reading Twitter, and I think it's getting to him. And I don't think somebody like Phil should have to deal. I don't even think he should have a Twitter or just, you know what I mean? He shouldn't be looking at that stuff, but he does. Right. In one way that you give him credit because his ears to the ground, but sometimes that can affect, your product.
And Mooch, the reason I say like stop conversing so much, stop doing interviews, stop talking as much, stop being as connected as much is because, while I do feel like that's great of him to kind of, fall on the sword and kind of let, say, hey, the buck stops with me because he is in charge of the whole thing. I don't put all the blame on him. I put a big part of the blame on the Twitter community. Because if you look at their trajectory, the things that they've been doing, since like 2013, they've been answering the call of everything the fan base wants. It was about power. We can't lose that power narrative to Sony again. So we got to make sure to do that. And how many variations of power hardware do we get without a game that showcased it?
Right. And they're still losing in that department because since PlayStation was like the better optimized built console, even though technically is less powerful, is running a lot of these multi-class better. Lately, And Mooch, we've seen the fan base acquiesces to every move that they make. Remember, it's like 2013 to 2014, 15, it was games. We're hitting you over the head with games. And it was all about that. And Sony had the sparse year and sparse time and everything. Then it was play anywhere. We're going to shift into that. And, you can play your games. Oh, that's great. That's brilliant. And then it switched over to, then the Game Pass thing started. Oh, that's the future of gaming. And I always say, back that up. That is not a true statement. Stop saying that Game Pass is the future of gaming. It is the future of Microsoft's gaming.
Right. That's right.
The market has not said, oh yeah. Microsoft has a huge
you remember
battle
Eric, you said
ahead of them.
Eric, you remember
service stuff.
Eric, you said how, like we've been in this game for a long time. We've been gaming for a very long time. You remember back in the, let's just say the 90s, just to put it frankly, like there was buffets popping up everywhere.
Mhm.
Everywhere. Everyone's like, oh my God, no one wants to sit down and have a boring snooze of a restaurant experience. I want to get up and eat as much as I want, pay one price, and out I go. And everyone was like, that's what it's going to be. Ponderosas everywhere. There was buffets every corner. Sizzler. But guess what happened? It died out. And now the other buffets out there? Sure.
Yeah.
But it didn't take over. And it's like, and maybe like DC, maybe I'm just getting a little too hungry here as we approach the 9:30 hour here in New York. But I got to tell you, that's the thing. You said it really, really well. That's Microsoft's approach to gaming going forward. That's not Nintendo's. That's not PlayStation's. And the other companies are doing the same thing. They're not really. They have their subscription services, like EA has EA, Ubisoft has theirs, but they still focus on that $70 title getting bought. They're like, and we have this other thing. We have this other thing streaming, but please buy the $70 game. Yeah. So, you couldn't be more right. And I guess I'll ask Forte. I don't know if you want to answer this real quick. Last question, just a yes or no, because everybody wants to go play games and eat. So, Forte, with the CMA now imposing even more restrictions, is this deal dead? I gotta get that in there real quick.
Okay, it's not dead. It's super on life support. It's waiting for the family members to come in and make.
It's not in hospice, is it? It's in hospice.
It's making a decision on if the family members want to, keep fighting it to the bitter end. I mean, I always kept saying this. I always say this. As long as Microsoft is willing to keep fighting, then the deal's not dead. It's going to be Microsoft quitting on this before it actually just completely gets shut down. Yeah, because that's how I always looked at it. It's like if Microsoft says, that's it. It's getting to the point where we just rather pay the $3 billion and be done with it. Then it's going to be done. I don't think it's going to get to a point where outright it's just going to be completely a no-go, because even like I said, it comes down to the FTC. It comes down to the other regulators and stuff. If they pass it, then it just puts more pressure on the CMA, and then they can make other decisions and stuff. So I think Microsoft is kind of trying to play the long game of saying, we want to see if we can get as many people on our side. So if we do just got one regulating body saying that it's something that we are not approved of, they can basically go back and say, well, numbers are basically saying it's on our side, and they can see if they can get some type of concessions that way. I think you start seeing like the EU and you start seeing like the FTC come out and start saying stuff about blocking and stuff like that. If they say it, then I think at that point, Microsoft will kind of just drop it at that point. But until we get to that scenario, Microsoft's going to keep fighting until they really can't fight it no more.
Yeah, the EU is the question mark right now. The CMA's come out, they've blocked it, they've added restrictions, and you just had was it Lena Khan was on recently on one of those stocks shows that they discuss all types of big business deals and mergers, etc. And she seems to be doubling down as well on the fact that they're going to go for a block. So, I mean, if the FTC and the CMA are not allowing this without, maybe years in court, Microsoft doesn't want to keep this thing rolling on and on. They'll spend that $69 billion somewhere else in gaming, hopefully. Hopefully. You know what I mean? So I will say this much. I want to say thanks, everybody. Shout out to, by the way, Biggity080. Big comes in. He says, because we were talking about Phil and how he pays attention to the, Twitterverse and things like that. And we were talking about the Nintendo and PlayStation guys that don't really do that. And Big comes back. He says, because Nintendo is boring and people wouldn't listen. Big, let's not get Chris Righteous all riled up when the show's about to end. Okay? The man wants to enjoy.
No, that's not true, because y'all remember the Iwata days?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, like he was always out there. Please understand. And, they was always out there. But that's when they were at their worst. And then, you know what I mean? They shut up and started delivering games.
Yeah, no, good. Credit to Chris for that. He pulled that one. I wasn't even thinking about that, Chris. Credit to Chris. Outstanding show, guys. I want to say thank you so much. Thanks to our new members. Shout out to Big and shout out to a few of the other guys. Straight Shot. Thanks for all the super chats, guys. Big thanks also for gifting those Mooch Maniac, Major Maniac memberships. That means the world to me. You guys, what a great show, man. Honestly, I had a lot of fun tonight. Tonight was one of those crossfires where, man, it's just, there was a lot to talk about. We did it all in about 2.5 hours. This could have easily went 4 hours. I literally just cut a few things here and there, and these guys are so passionate about it. So I'll go in reverse order here. The Great Gaming Forte. Forte, it is a pleasure to have you here on a Friday night. I know I don't get you every Friday night. I would like to have you every Friday night, but that's not fair. It's not fair for you to tell your family, I have to spend time with Mooch and not you guys. So, Forte, great for you to be here. Let people know where they can find you, and I hope you're here next Friday.
Oh, yeah. I walked in the house and my wife was sleeping. My kids were all taking naps and stuff. So I was like, well, I can sneak in the basement and jump on Crossfire.
Great, buddy. I appreciate it.
But no, yeah, great show as always. Really excited for the weeks that we have coming up. You know, we got Xbox with their showcase. We got a whole bunch of stuff. You know, we got a great game that just released today. So if you have a Switch or thinking about getting a Switch, this is definitely the game to buy. So basically enjoy yourself playing the games over the weekend. And for me, Gaming Forte everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, Xbox Live and PlayStation. DPS podcast is every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Was the last night on the Homeboy Slow-Mo / channel. Check it out on my channel next week. We go live Thursday, 9 p.m. It's going to be a great time. Hope to see you guys there. And with that, you guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, Forte. The great Eric Jackson. Eric, boy, I'll tell you something, man. The voice of reason. You can put that, you can get a tattoo of that on your arm if you want. And anytime someone says something, just roll up that sleeve. It's outstanding to have you here as always. Love when you can make the show. Let everybody know where they can find you. And you know I'll be bothering you probably in a couple of weeks to come back on again.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Sorry I was late. Little furniture issue. Delivery.
No problem. That's what I said. I said he's got some stuff to take care of. He will be here shortly. Believe me. So yeah, I appreciate that.
No, great panel tonight. Chat was on fire. Again, thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure. Hopefully, I might try to make it again next week if I can. We'll see.
That would be great.
I try not to. Slow-mo will attest. We don't put that out in the universe.
The catastrophic will happen.
Slow-mo just
right.
Slow-mo's DMing Eric right now, being like, "Why would you tell Mooch that on air? You know you have to show up now." So no, I'm already looking forward to next week. I'm already looking forward to next week. Thank you so much. The great Slow-mo backstop as well. Slow-mo, I know that you usually, today a little bit different. Usually you're coming right in from work or right in from a family event and you're right here for Crossfire. So I really appreciate your time as well and your input on gaming. Slow-mo, let everybody know where they can find you.
Find me on my channel. You can find me on literally everything: Kick, Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Slow-mo backslap on all of that. I go live on my channel with DPS podcast with Forte as well as Lunchtime with Slow-mo. And I drop videos that sometimes piss people off, but it is what it is. So come through, don't like, it's all good. I don't care. But yeah, great show, guys. Great panel as well. Enjoy your games. Have a good week.
Appreciate that, Slow-mo. And then the great Chris Righteous. Chris, honestly, outstanding to have you on the show tonight. And, listen, I thought I was just going to get insider Zelda news. No, I got Chris Righteous on 6 or 7 topics, and he was on fire tonight. So, Chris, honestly, thanks for bringing that enthusiasm. Thanks for bringing the hype to Zelda that everybody needs to hear. And I appreciate you being here. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, you just made me find me on my Twitter. I interact with people on there. Sometimes I do spaces every now and again whenever I feel like it. And yeah, man, definitely another moment in gaming history, today. Big game coming out for my favorite franchise of all time. And yeah, I will say one thing. I think it was genius that Nintendo called this game Tears of the Kingdom, right? Because not only does it have stuff to do with the story and some mechanics of the game, right?
Yes.
Like all the other Zeldas, right?
Yes.
But even like the meta, right? Even like the meta of like the people, you know what I mean, about this game. Like, there's a lot of tears of joy and tears of happiness and stuff like that. There's a lot of salty tears too, man. I just been loving how this one game is able to, build an entire kingdom made out of both Xbox and PlayStation salty ass tears and stuff like that. I just love that. But yeah, I was having a blast yesterday. I was clapping at Abe. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going at Abe. Don't take it too serious, man. But anyways, yeah, thanks for having me on. I'll see you next time when Final Fantasy 16, which is next month.
Yes, yes, you better be here. Honestly, Chris, I'm holding you to that, buddy. I really, really am. It's great to have you here. I love your intake on all these games. Chris, thanks so much. And guys, remember, Dreamcast guy had to leave a little bit early, but he did stay basically 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's not really early. I got the whole show with DC. So shout out to Dreamcast guy. You guys can find him over on Twitter and YouTube, Dreamcast guy. And yeah, it's going to be great. And shout out to Brap, too, Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. He goes Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. With that being said, go enjoy your Zelda game, will you? I'm going to enjoy Zelda. I know it's not the same as PlayStation and Xbox where we see each other all on, but I'll be putting pictures out there. I'll be enjoying the game. I hope you guys do the same. That being said, we'll see you next Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Outstanding show. Thanks again to everybody. Super chat, new members, chat, and panel. You guys are all phenomenal. We'll do this again next Friday. Peace out and good night.